Hello, everybody, and welcome to Vex Warfield. I am Vex, your host. And, I usually do videos to start off, or I have been doing videos to start it off. And quite frankly, I couldn't find one that I really wanted to play. So I said to heck with it. I just wanted to get on here and see basically how you guys are doing so far. I mean, I hardly talk to a lot of people that I used to talk to all the time. And I'm just wondering how this apocalypse has been treating you so far. So, come on in and hang out with me and let's see what's going on. I know we got a lot of news going on. Big Afghanistan thing. If there was a wrong way to do something, then boy, it was done the wrong way. Much like our government in general. What have they been doing right lately? As far as I can tell, not a whole hell of a lot. As a matter of fact, seems like they're, well, I know, crazy talk, but seems like they're kind of working against American people. Have since Potato's been in the quote White House, have you seen any benefits to anything at all? I haven't seen any. I'm still poor. um, Nothing's getting better. As a matter of fact, seems to be getting a little bit worse. Prices are starting to go up. Oh, sure, it hasn't gone like skyrocket or nothing, but you notice that ever since this China flu kicked off, we haven't had much in the way of supplies, have we? You tell me. I mean, okay. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. It seems like that's what's been happening. Even 10 years ago, you could ask the guy next to you just, real quick, hey, do you think our government's doing good? Generally, the answer would have been no. Sure, you might run into those who don't have any idea. And, as far as they know, it's going perfectly. We know who those types are. But what else? I this is supposed to be a government of we the people, for the people, by the people. Is this what you see? It's not what I see. We don't really have anybody representing us anymore, do we? The Revolutionary War was, I can't remember if it was just above 10% or just below 10% of a tax. That was the final straw. What's the percentage of taxes that you get taken out? Now, I'm not just talking about the IRS. Of course, I'm talking about sales tax, tax on your tax, all that. Have you had enough? Because you can change this. And all you got to do is get familiar with how it was originally done, how this country was originally formed. The founders were some pretty smart men. They took their time and pointed out exactly what they didn't want for the future of this nation. And we have it everywhere around us. everywhere. Hey, Pseudo, how you doing? It's everywhere around us. Is enough enough? Is it? It's enough for me. I'm tired of this. This is so taxing that it's a joke. I mean, only the mental ill and the people who absolutely don't want to recognize the truth are the only ones following in this. Either that or they get paid lots of money to be evil pieces of crap. So, I go back to my original question. So how you doing so far in this apocalypse? How's it treating you? Doing all right? Not doing good? Doing great? Doing shitty? What's up? Because I'm not doing too good. I don't like this a damn bit. I'm quite sick of it. And I seem to be banging my head up against the wall with some people to get them to realize that they can actually do something about it. And and Epstein, how you doing? And quite frankly, I'm kind of getting tired of running into people who just kind of refuse to understand. Or if they do understand, they don't want to do nothing about it. Even though there's just something simple you can do. Show up. I know it sounds complicated. I mean, show up. A couple hours a week. Hang out. Talk about what's going on. Figure out, what needs to be done and then do it. As soon as we get enough people, all this goes away. Are you tired of what's going on? All of this political bullshit, this theater that we're being put through on a day-to-day basis. You might as well call it the Truman Show. The apocalypse must be televised. That's a lyric in a Disturbed song. I like it. The apocalypse must be televised. If you're not familiar with Disturbed's kind of a heavy metal band that has some provocative lyrics. Well, provocative in the sense of today's PC bullshit world, where everything's about my feelings. But they describe some pretty heavy shit. I'd recommend it. Check out Disturbed. 10,000 Fists is a good album. But regardless, as a matter of fact, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put this link in the chat. Oh, I have to actually bring that up before I can put a link in. Okay. Yeah, I've done this before. Relax, everybody. It's cool. All right, where is it? There we go. This is something that has become a good tool for teaching people how things should be. Was that a sentence? I hope that was a sentence. Okay, redbeckman.com videos. Put that in the chat real quick. Red Beckman has a way of putting things together and actually has charged for it and stuff. I know it's kind of, hey, what's up, conservative patriot? Good to see you. But it has a good way of, laying out what's what. And he originally started combating the government because of taxes. Seems like a recurring theme, don't you think? I mean, taxes. It started the Revolutionary War. We've had enough with the crown. And yet, here we are today, allowing them to tax the shit out of us. As a matter of fact, there's taxes on our shit, wastewater. You have to do taxes then. I mean, come on. Have you had a fucking enough yet? Like I said, this is a joke. And yeah, thank you. Yeah, Buddy was making up my avatar. I like it. That, in case you don't know, the background is the U.S. civil flag. And that is the flag of we the people. The United States, the Union. That is our flag. The blue in the flags that are flown everywhere now is a military flag. And I don't fly that flag anymore. That's not me. That's the corporation. I'm not a part of the corporation. Except if you count my, legal fiction, the straw man that they have for me. That ain't me. I'm a Missourian. But what I was going on about, mainly, I wanted to say that all this stuff that's going on right now can stop. It can stop real quick. Oh yeah, pseudo Canadian. That's right. There is actually something I wrote down that I need to tell you. Let's see. I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget it. That you may find interesting. Okay, the Articles of Confederation. I want you to check those out. Do a deep dive and get to know those if you don't already. One of the things about the Articles of Confederation is we issued them to the world. That means Canadians too. Think about it. Oh, I have to admit, I haven't done enough reading on it myself, so I can't go into detail and tell you exactly why and all that stuff. But it may be worth a look, and you could actually do the same thing that we're doing in the States up there in Canada. Because we the people is we the people all over the world. One of the things I used to say on one of my old live streams was, first we heal America, then we heal the rest of the world. I meant that. And this is one way we can help you up there in Canada and other countries that might happen to come across this broadcast. Look into the Articles of Confederation. And like I said, they were issued to everybody outside of the U.S. So, like I said, the people are stronger than them. And they know this. That's why they're dumbing everybody down. This is why all our land, air, food, all of it's being poisoned. Because they need us dumb. They need us not engaged. Because quite frankly, if it wasn't for all that, we'd have probably already drug them out and tar and feathered them, so to speak. And let me just appease the YouTube gods and say that I'm not advocating violence or anything like that. It's just I'm recalling an old historical thing about tarring and feathering that our cowboy ancestors used to do to, what's a good word for it? Corrupt politicians. Or politicians that served their own interests above the people. We took care of it locally. Now we're more civilized. So instead of tar and feathering, we hold grand juries and we have assembly meetings and we have them arrested for the corruption they surround themselves with. End of story. And in an assembly being put together, we get rid of all the bullshit crimes that everybody goes to jail for. Because under assembly, the basis of it is no victim, no crime. So that means you could walk down the street and smoke a joint or drink a beer. Or you could speed a little bit on the highway. So long as you're not endangering other people and driving erratically or anything like that, you're fine. But if you are unsafe, then yes, you will be pulled over and you will be dealt with accordingly. And if you want to fight it, you may fight it before the assembly because it is your word against. Well, wait. I just trapped myself in a corner on that one because I'm not sure exactly what that means. Oh, I have stumped myself. All right, Rapscallion Garcia, welcome. Basically, for anyone who just came in, I'm talking about, are we done with all this this mental retardation as our new culture? Because this is how we get rid of it. I mean, we could go the, polishing your brass and making sure all your ammo's in order and all that stuff. We could go that route. But quite frankly, that's going to do nothing but create entire chaos, and we will, if we ever recover from it, it will be a long time coming, and it won't be the world that we grew up in. It won't even be close. I'm talking more along the lines of Mad Max type shit. People killing other people because, it's easier to take their food than, actually act like a person and share. Because that'd be all out the window. Gone like the wind. But if we do it civilized, here and now, then we can avoid this. Now, I also want to make it clear that the assembly isn't a personal platform for you to go after your private agenda. As a matter of fact, if you want to do that, go run for office, because that's all corporate de facto shit. That's what they deal in. That's how they've been making their money. So go run for fucking office if you want to do that. This is not about you or me in person. It is about us working together for a common good. We do what's best for the majority. And if there's a problem in what we decide, we discuss it. We figure out the ins and outs of it. We have investigations. We figure out what is best. And we bring it before the assembly so that everybody can vote on it. Everybody can discuss it. And then we vote. Now, granted, I jumbled up the order a little bit just because I was, rambling on a bit. But the premise of it is solid. This is what our founding fathers began. And it's up to us to make it happen. Common Sense Commonwealth. Welcome. I mean, it's pretty simple. I'll put it this way. Throughout all the scenarios I've run in my brain, only two things really stem down to two possibilities. It's either we go Fallout Mad Max style, or we sit down like fucking adults and we talk to each other and figure shit out. Really, that's it. Only two choices we have right now, because they have made sure we have no other. And up until I learned about the assembly, I didn't think there was any other alternative other than going to guns. And quite frankly, I was okay with that at the time. Because even back then, I was tired of this crap. I mean, honestly, I'm honestly tired of this. Just thinking about it makes me weary. I haven't used that word in a long time. But I'm tired of it. It is so exhausting having to deal with this rampant stupidity that is being spewed forth on a constant, daily, minute by minute basis. It's ridiculous. It's time for the fucking adults to stand up and do something about it. This is how we do it. We become the adults and we make the children sit the fuck down and obey. Spare the rod, spoil the child. Well, we've been doing that for too long. All right. I'm going to go ahead and throw the link out into chat. See if any of you guys want to come up here and basically accompany me in my bitch session. Like the title says, have you had enough? Or wait a minute, that wasn't my title. Oh yeah, so how's the apocalypse treating you? How is it? How you guys doing so far? You doing good? You doing shitty? Yeah, alright? No good? What? Let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and check out the chats I've been missing since I've been yapping. Let's see what we got here. Oh, well, that's good news, I guess. Trudeau's brother getting arrested for raping a minor. Well, I'm surprised we haven't heard more of that. Oop. Don't need to double click that. Mental note taken. Let's see. By M.G. Lawson, 1952, cited by 14. Canada and Articles of Confederation, Murray G. Lawson. To the students of Canadian-American relations, an interesting problem is Canada. I keep wanting to say Canada. So if I slip and say Canada, yeah, you just have to forgive me. Canada acceding to this confederation and joined in the measures of the United States shall be admitted into and entitled to all the advantages of this union. Yeah, that's one of the parts that I remember looking at, and that's what made me think of you guys up in Canada. Like I said, I haven't dove into it and did the research the way I should, but that's something that might help spur some We the People action up north. I don't know. It's an idea. Yeah, an idea I got basically through going to the assembly classes and going to the assembly calls or the national call. I mean, the amount of information is staggering. Let's see. I need a drink. Pause for the drinking cause. Good stuff. All right. Let's see. What else have I missed? No colony should be admitted into the same unless such admissions are agreed to by 9 states. Yeah. Yeah, there's always rules to it, of course. Pseudo. Welcome.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Yes, I can hear you.
I was just muting the stream so I didn't echo.
Good deal. Yeah, like I said, I haven't been able to dive into it and do the research on it, but it was an idea that came across, and I thought might be beneficial.
That's the first time I've ever heard anything that joined Canada and America legally. I keep hearing about Britain.
Lawfully, actually.
About how there's rumors up here going around, and I don't know how much weight they have, that the Queen gave up Canada a long ass time ago. And instead of doing it right, some people, some families, basically took control. And they have been cosplaying, I'm not even kidding, cosplaying government ever since. They have a privy council, and they have this lady that sits up there, and she's got a staff, and they come in and they present her with stuff, and she doesn't do anything legal. She just sort of claps or bows or something and leaves the room. It's not even legal by the standards written down. So there's this
That's
one
crazy.
guy who's trying to collect money for a movie for the last, I don't know how many years, called The Myth of Canada. He's the one who kind of brought this up, but there's other people who are challenging the government, and we have so many shills up here running game, collecting money, saying they're going to do this for everybody, and they just collect the money, nothing ever happens, and it's a dead end. And we have probably 5 political parties. They're all the same. Well, they're not all the same, but they're all working for the UN. We have one party called the PPC who may be legit, but it's even in question because of the leader and how it started. He won't say where he got the starting money, so people think he's backed by, well, whoever's running the show. So we're gonna have problems up here, down there. People are going to have to stand up or get rolled, and things are going to get tough. Like, the government isn't going to be able to pretend it's in control in the near future. They have lost control of compound interest. They have lost control of globalism 1.0, and that's all because of China. China just refuses to play along with the globalists. Like, they are going to do their own thing, and nobody's going to tell them what to do. And Kissinger's plan has basically going up in smoke, and we're all going to pay a heavy price for it, because there's no way China's just going to. They expect it to be number one next, right? And to not get there, they are going to do everything in their power to get there, or punish anybody who prevented them, in their mind, in their eye, from getting there. And America will be number one. So, although they're really kind of stuck there because they need the money from America, right? So they got to export stuff here, but I can see them saying they can't export some things here just because it'll cause grief, right? Such as, we've seen problems with computer chips for cars, dashes, and stuff. Well, that's just the beginning, right? Like, it'll be car parts. Next, the tractor parts, equipment parts.
It already is. It's
Yeah, well,
wood, for Christ's sake.
listen, can somebody please tell me what the hell is going on with lumber? I have yet to hear anybody give me a straight answer as to why we're into this lumber problem a year. Nobody's talking about it. So I have to question, where's the lumber going?
Okay. Well, actually, that's the problem right there. Is it's not going anywhere. The amount of drivers is decreasing, and
Do you
it's
really
by
believe this is a
design.
problem with
But
drivers? I really don't
it's
think.
only one part of it.
I really don't think this is a manpower
Multiple
issue.
things. No. It actually is. The COVID was meant to
Okay.
shut down all of our industry. That means everywhere. Make us dependent on government handouts. They want everything natural to dry up so that we all have to rely on all our governments. And this is just one area. I mean, when you lock down, hey, God's night, welcome. When you lock down and close down a bunch of small businesses, that basically just hollows out the middle class, so the middle class becomes a lower class.
Right, and it puts America in number 2 and China in number 1 because they're actually still producing
Exactly.
stuff and making money and going forward while we're slipping. Right, because the same thing's happening in Australia and Canada and New Zealand and Britain and well, I'm guessing. See, I'm not sure. I shouldn't say I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure Europe's going communism. They're going with China and globalism.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure
yeah.
they've given the finger to America, the West, and everybody else. They've basically given the finger
Well, they did
to
that.
everybody else in the Europe, but Germany. They can't do much with France.
Well, they did.
But everybody else is
Look,
getting
I can't stress
started.
this enough. I can't stress this enough. We never stopped fighting the Revolutionary War. Hey, Veritas, we never stopped fighting the Revolutionary War. This is still the same fucking battle. Well, maybe not the battle. Same war. It's the same thing. All this, whenever they couldn't take us outright on land, they took us by our fucking imports and exports. And then, we bought into their, helping us out after this, all this. They financed the Civil War. I mean,
right. See, they couldn't control the
stopped.
outcome of Midway and World War II as much as they
Right.
tried. Like, I've heard of so many bomber pilots flying over ammo dumps that weren't allowed to dump on them, to bomb them, because the globalists want more people dead, more fighting, right? It wasn't
Yes.
about ending the war for them, like the globalists, right? But they couldn't actually control the outcome of the war. Like, I guarantee you, they didn't. They wanted Germany to lose, but they didn't want America to win, right? They wanted somebody else to win. I won't even point a finger as to who, but America was the last standing navy when World War II was over, put them in a position where they are today, and that's like,
Yeah.
Nobody could have predicted the outcome of Midway, right? Like, that was so like timing and back and forth and stopping for a bowl of rice and the whole 9 yards. Like, nobody could have predicted that outcome. It could have been America that lost all their ships that day. Instead, it was mostly Japanese ships that got tanked, and the American ships did get rolled over. A bunch of them. Some of them got rebuilt and put up back on into service, right, almost within days, weeks.
Yeah.
Anyway, the globalists, Europeans, have not been happy America has been doing so good since. They want their top spot back, right? China wants top spot back. America is supposed to get tanked. Like, I think their plan was to, like America had been doing, getting stretched too thin by being in too many places, fighting too many wars, right? And if you only believe what you hear, you think, oh, the warmongers from America. But if you understand the Bretton Woods Agreement, well, then you realize that they've been basically helping everybody. Yeah, the CIA and the corporations fucked around, banana companies, Dole, and then they kind of got a little carried away with some things, and okay, whatever. But when you realize the Project Paperclip brought a bunch of them over from Europe, put them in the CIA and NASA and Lord knows where else, I really don't take a whole lot of blame for that anymore, right? I just can't. When I know that the higher powers are in there fucking around, messing around, I don't take no blame for it anymore. I don't feel no guilt, no shame. right?
Yeah. Hey, this has been several. I've said this before, and all these conflicts that we've had to go through since the Revolutionary War has been manufactured. Every damn one of them.
Well, agree.
I don't, I can't stress it. I mean, this is everything, all the conflicts, all the damn things that's been going on. You can tell which ones are exactly been more or less planned because they're sloppy. This is the same MO they're using today with all these false flag events and stuff like that. You can see the same pattern every damn war outside of the Normandy.
They don't change anything as long as it works. Until it quits working, they do the same thing over like the military.
Well, see, that's the problem. Is it has failed. It's failed many times, but yet they keep using it. I mean, nobody buys 9/11 anymore. That was a bullshit story from the
Some people
get-go.
do.
Well, yeah, but they're not very well informed. They haven't really dug in. They're the type of people
They
who
could care
read
less, right?
headlines.
Yeah, they could
Yeah,
care
they
less.
read headlines.
They don't watch the weather.
They'll believe.
So.
Yeah, they're the sheeple. But anybody who puts in any type of investigation whatsoever can easily find inconsistencies and holes in
Well,
every event.
all you have to do is watch that documentary from those engineers and how they basically explain a mass can't come down onto a pile without toppling off the side. And once they show you a little diagram, they go, "Oh my God, that makes so much sense. There's no way that thing could come straight down."
Yeah, I just ask one thing: what happened to the airplane that hit the wreckage of the airplane that hit the Pentagon? Because I never saw any.
Yeah, well,
But I did, however, see. Well, that's what I'm saying. I did, however, see some footage of at the what do they call those little booths, security booth thing that's sitting out away from the
right. Someone goes zipping by a camera there.
Yeah, and it's the size of a damn white missile. There wasn't no damn big ass 747 or whatever it was. No,
and
it was a freaking missile.
Just happens to hit the room where they're doing an audit for a missing trillion or 3 or something.
Oh yeah, don't get me started on Building 7.
Well, that's what I thought you were going to bring up, the mysterious fainting Building 7.
Yeah, swoon. That's amazing because
so
we even have audio.
The headquarters that had to be the command center or something. Like, why did they take that building down?
To tell you the truth, I've forgotten exactly why, but it goes back into where a lot of documents are kept.
No. Okay.
Yeah. So I want to say something along the lines of I think the IRS had some offs there, or damn, I can't remember. Somebody in chat, you guys probably remember. Throw it in chat if you remember what was in Building 7. Damn it, my memory is going. Luckily, I do live stream, so I can recall later.
See, I really hadn't woken up yet, even on 9/11. Like, I did when I heard about that and seen that, I thought, well, that's just what governments and militaries do, right? They cause shit to go start a fight somewhere, blah 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 blah, right? I didn't really think a whole lot. Like, in one ear, out the other. Okay, yeah, JFK. I kind of figured that was a setup too, but it didn't really wake me up. Like, I had to go through see some more things before I found out. Holy fuck! This. They're not telling the truth about anything.
Yeah, they're saying documents, money, documents, stuff like that in Building 7. Wood pallet shortages? Well, yeah, if you got nobody building them, then you're going to have shortages. That's the whole thing about the COVID stuff is that, hey, Hayden, welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
All right. We're just talking about the apocalypse. How's it going with you so far?
Oh, it's fantastic. All these last bit I heard before I was trying to join on was about some of these false flag events, but I've been examining the recent evacuation from Afghanistan, and particularly the video of that giant cargo plane with all of those people standing around it, and I'm not saying there's not chaos over there. I don't really know, but I can tell you that
No, you'd have to define chaos.
exactly. I can tell you that that video of all them people with
Afghanis?
with rags on their heads, those jet engines, those jet or turbine engines on that plane, pardon my French, but will suck the wings off of a gnat's ass from 100 yards away. There is no way those people did not get turned into ground beef. It's not real.
I don't think that was French.
Yeah, it's a yeah. I
Yes,
guess,
those engines will suck you in and just la machine dice you up
exactly.
for real, and you blow up the motor or the engine at the same time.
Well,
It'll be a nice pink mist that gets shot out the back with chunks.
yeah, chunks of towel and chunks of people, and with the amount of people that were standing there, and even if that thing was just taxiing down the runway, that's how much air grab they have. They will suck you up.
Somebody was showing me a picture of one of those big planes sitting on a tarmac, getting loaded or whatever before takeoff, and they've got guys positioned around it with weapons. You're not going to get anywhere near that thing without getting a hole in it. So I find it really odd that they're just getting moving and his people are jogging beside it without anybody giving them any grief.
Yeah, no, that is that's not how that works.
Yeah,
That's
you notice how slow it was moving. It was being taxied.
I don't believe it was being taxied. I believe it was moving under its own power, allegedly.
You think so?
I could be wrong. I watched the video one time and was like, "Wow, okay."
And at this point, I'm not buying anything about the Afghan story. Nothing.
No,
It has to. It's all a
I
setup.
wouldn't.
yeah,
It's a planned takeover. This is an excuse for them to steal American money and give it to their friends, our enemies, right? This is all a setup.
And then bring them here.
well, there's
Our enemies. They're bringing our enemies to us.
You
Isn't that
should
nice
see
of
what's going on up
They're
here.
gonna fly them with our own
It's
military.
outrageous.
I was looking at
Yeah,
another picture of one of those that specific airplane that was I guess the tail number on it was I think it was 1109 or
Yeah, it was 9/11 backwards, basically triggering anybody that's into that geometry or Q or anything like that.
yeah, and it,
sounds like something Q would do.
it's interesting because you look at that plane and that video, and then you look at what a in-service version of that airplane looks like, and you can tell that airplane in that picture has been decommissioned. A lot of the inlets for some of the mechanical parts there in the front have been sealed off and painted, and that's how you can tell it's been decommissioned. But it's who knows what the real story is going on over there. I think, in my opinion, things are going so terribly wrong for the corporation here that they're trying to reinvent a conflict and a way to give the UN or the big bank their the money that they're owed. So,
Well, I see it as a way for them to make America look horrible and give China a step up. Make them like, why were they even brought into the talks? Like, whose idea was that? And now they're in there. Within weeks, they're in there with the Taliban. Okay, and that's not pre-planned or rehearsed or agreed upon in advance. Bullshit. It's all planned, right? It's Biden helping G out, right? It'll be Obama. He'll be getting some money to his friends over there. It's a win-win for them in all aspects. It's us over here just shaking our head, going, "What's going on?" And a bunch of people are going to get hurt, and they're going to bring the enemy over here and leave the good people there. That's my opinion.
Yep. Well, here's a title from USA Today: Carnage in Kabul. Yeah. Hey, Z, welcome. And yeah, I actually can't actually read what it says because it's just blurry enough that I can't quite make it out. But I don't know. We all have seen them stage events. It's part of their MO. Now, I'm not saying all this is staged. I don't know. I'm not there. But my gut says this is all political theater. Yes, I think there are people getting hurt and stuff like that, but it's because they're allowing it to happen. They want people to be mad and be fed up, especially the military. Now, what happens if you piss off our military? I'll leave that question open.
well, I know what happens when you piss off veterans.
Yeah, what does happen?
Well, I heard a story actually earlier today about I believe it was a bank flying some flags on top of their building there, and across the street there was a veterans memorial and I think it was a American Legion building across the street. And one day this bank decided to put a few of the flags that it had on top of this building and fly them all up to the same height. Well, the veterans come out of that building and started knocking on the door of that bank, and it got didn't get physical, but it got changed up how those flags were supposed to be relatively quickly. So active duty, it depends who's giving orders, but those veterans, they put their life on the line for something. And when people start walking on it, you know they'll act or make
And
the
they
voice
kind of
heard.
take it personal.
Oh yeah, and rightfully so.
Indeed. What I have up here on the screen is something that everybody should start spreading around. This adjure grand jury findings of facts and the grievances brought before the grand jury on this day, July 31st in this year of our Lord 2021. In the presentment of of declaration by people assembled in California state find these grievances true and correct. Therefore, the grand jury finds that the people in California state shall assembled. Hold on, I messed that up. That the people in the California state shall assemble to reassemble a de jure constitutional republic as intended by the founding fathers of the United States of America. This entire document may be viewed by the internet at nationalassembly.net, and you can see the rest. This is a notice to the principal. Notice to principal is notice to agent, and the content of this notice is not the opinion or claims of the newspaper publication, its employees, or management. What this means is that the California General Assembly has given notice to the Corporation of California and to everyone else. Given notice. Now, I don't know if everybody realizes what that means.
Not a clue.
But this is what the assembly is. This is what the assembly is. This is what all the states are working towards. Well, those of us who are in our states that are working towards it. There are some states that aren't. We need everybody to do it. This is what we're all working towards. And from this point further, the people of California have stood up and spoken. Just like Alaska and just like Michigan did. This is what we all need to do in our states. And then we need to do it in our counties.
I just ran into a guy in another stream named Voodoo something.
Yeah, Trailer Hood.
That's him. He said he's starting assembly in his state.
Indiana. Yep. I haven't heard from him in a while. I wish he would contact me. So, Voodoo, if you're checking this out, get a hold of me, man.
He was in he was in Hippies stream last week. Yeah. I was hanging out in there. I don't even know how I got. Somebody must have dropped his link for me to pick it up because I don't know how I got his link.
Yeah, most of us here know hippies and we hang out in hippies and stuff like that. So maybe got a notification just through recommendations.
Mm-hmm. Maybe.
I don't know. You know how screwy YouTube is. The date on this is July 31st, 2021.
Okay, so what happens next? What does this mean? It was in the newspaper, so now what?
Well, this is giving notice, and this is basically right now they're waiting for a rebuttal. And since the corporation has no standing to make a rebuttal, all you have to do is wait. Usually it's 3 weeks,
and then
give or
what?
take.
Just curious, what happens after 3 weeks?
And then, and then at that point, we could start issuing requisitions, or I should say, they can. And requisitions are basically telling them what they're supposed to be doing.
Has Devil done dog?
And if they don't follow it, what's that?
Has that Devil Dog fella done the same thing in his state, wherever he is? I don't remember what state he's in. Is he in the same state as you?
I'm not recalling.
I guess he never got a hold of you. I told him to get a hold of you because he's a part of the assembly too.
Oh. Well, there is actually a de facto assembly in several different states, including Missouri. So I hope he's not a part of that one.
What's de facto mean? What do you mean by that?
De facto means illegitimate, but in effect. That's what our government is right now. De facto. And de jure is what we are. Now you ask me for the accurate definition on de jure. I don't remember it actually. Hayden, maybe you know. You know a lot of stuff.
Don't accuse me of that.
Too late.
So de jure is a word to define I literally just had it worded and it escaped me. De jure is a by right of law original jurisdiction state of a state. So right now we have a de facto system, and the goal with these assemblies is to end up having a de jure self-governing state with standing in law. It's sort of the easiest way to describe it is essentially the correct, true, proper standing in law.
Can I shorten it by saying de jure is common law?
In the American Republican form of government, yes.
Okay.
Because I say that because if you go over to Great Britain, you have a monarchy, and
yeah,
that's how they roll over there, I guess, until they decide otherwise.
I just had an interesting thought pass through my melon. I follow a geopolitician named Peter Zeihan. Zeihan, I don't know how to say it properly. Zeihan, I think. Yeah. He was saying that globalism is going to fail because there's not enough more left. Like all businesses and corporations all basically strive to sell more, be more, make more next year. Globalism is basically designed on the same premise: communism, socialism, capitalism. He's saying all these systems cannot function in the future because there's not more. We basically are running out of stuff and places and blah, blah, blah. And I think technology plays a role here too. He doesn't lean into that very hard. But we're really not advancing. Like computers aren't keeping up, solar, etc. Right? But what his comment was is that we're going to have to come up with a new system. He's saying all these old systems are going to fail, and we'll have to find another one that works. And he said the last time this happened, there was many wars and fights, and a lot of currencies and a lot of different systems came up and fell and crashed. And he says we're about to go through that again. So what if on the other side of this, we don't actually go back exactly to what, how much of this are we going to have to change to say functional in the future is what I guess my question is.
Yeah,
because the law has to be to coincide with a financial system, right? A production system. And if they're all changing, so the laws are going to have to change too, right? Like like we're already dealing with property, intellectual property theft. We're going to be dealing with cryptocurrencies, one form or another, right? We're either going to have the centralized globalism version, or we're going to have freedom with decentralized crypto. I'm just wondering where the law and Constitution, like, if we're going to revamp it, we should work all that in. Is what I'm thinking. Everybody's
So,
biting off too much here.
not really. Sorry, Vex, if you
Go ahead.
something to say about this. Well, these corporations and government are not supposed to be one and the same. First of all, they're not individuals and companies can do commerce and such, and the government can kind of, to a degree, regulate commerce with other nations and such. But the key thing to all of this is constitution and what constitutions are. And anybody who signs onto a constitution is a constitutor, meaning they agree to accept all of the debts as a result. So, one of the bigger changes being made and going back and reinstalling self-governance is that there's not going to be any recreation of constitutions. There's going to be state and county settlement covenants. And
Can I interrupt? When you said covenants, what do you mean by that? I don't understand. State covenants. What do you mean by that? I didn't understand.
so a constitution is trust law. Okay. And a covenant is a mutually binding verbal and written. Oh boy, I don't have the definition of covenant in front of me, but
Here, I got it. A binding agreement, a
Thank you.
compact, synonym agreement, a condition in which contract such as a deed or lease, non-performance or violation of which gives rise to a cause of action for breach.
thank
The
you,
first
Vince.
one, a binding agreement.
Yeah, a marriage, a marriage, in its original sense, is a covenant between the couple being married and God. And old times, like in the Middle East, when people would buy land from another person, they would sign covenants instead of land deeds or all that kind of paperwork.
In
So
short, in layman's terms, the difference being what?
that the burden to it, the burden of this covenant is common law, and that action can be taken for anybody who violates that covenant.
Are you familiar
like
with
your-
propertarianism?
Excuse me?
Are you familiar with propertarianism or reciprocity, the two concepts, as it comes to contracts and law? Basically, it
Can't
writes
say.
in there that in a contract, if the other person messes up, they pay the freight. You don't just get hung out. And it kind of sounds like you're kind of going in the same direction.
I guess I would need a better definition of what you're describing. And
Well, I can
I'm
look
not,
one up.
I'm not doing the definition of covenant and the real difference between the
Well, I didn't mean to
constitutions and
sidetrack you. I understand you were trying to explain it as a different system. I was just trying to understand how it's going to be different, or how it would be formed different, or what the benefits of it being compared to the situation or the system we're in now. And I'll look up the proper definition of propertarianism.
All into doing research live on the air. That's right. We do it live time, folks.
insert the cricket noises.
That's right.
These are these are very, very good. It's a good question, and this is what happens when you accuse me of being intelligent.
Put you on the spot. Well, the great thing about what we're talking about is when we come together as people towards a common goal, we get stuff done. Especially, I mean, think about it in the way of the parents at the at school board meetings going against the masks and stuff like that. In numbers, working towards one goal, they made it happen. I mean, made it not happen. You know, they didn't want the mask. They told them and basically ran them out of the building. I mean, I think I seen one of them where they actually got up and took off. Just like the judges do when you challenge them. These people are cowards. They have nothing to stand on but shifting sands. And when you don't have a good foundation to stand on, it's easy to be knocked over. All we have to do is stand the fuck up. Stand the fuck up and do exactly what California just did. Give notice that we're back. The adults are in charge now. And when the de jure stands, the de facto must sit. That means we are superior to them.
We have
They are public servants.
We have rightful ownership. We're taking that ownership back.
Exactly that. He said it way better. All right, Pseudo put in reciprocity and propertarianism by John Mark and Kurt Doolittle. Many forum members have been mentioning John Mark, and I stumbled on these concepts which look... Oh, he must be still typing.
Yeah, well, okay. I went to look up these guys. These guys are two shills. There's John Mark and Kurt Doolittle. Were shilling it. But the concept, the idea was stellar, rock solid. Not sure why they brought it up, because once I heard it, I'm going, okay, let's take the words and run with it. And nobody's picked it up since. It's kind of driving me crazy. If you guys, especially you, Vex, if you looked into it, even, oh my God, we need this. Because it basically bakes into every contract. Again, I need to find, I'm trying to find more information, better, another site, another platform that will show the video. They run the
one.
Go ahead.
The one question I have on this is whether it's centralized in the corporate area or
common
in common law. So this is definitely in common law.
How do you know?
No,
how did you know? Oh, I don't know. I have to go back and look. I don't know. I wasn't even familiar with the two terms back then when I first heard this. these guys talking
Okay.
about this.
Okay. So,
I'm gonna go try and get
well,
more
if it's
information
centered,
on it.
right. Excellent. Yeah, if it's centered in the corporation and in legalese and all that stuff, then it can be dealt with. But to tell you the truth, when you step onto their field, you're under their rules. So you have to be careful in that regard. And
And
their rules, by the way, are made for us to fail. Go ahead, Hayden.
yeah, I was just going to add on to what you were saying. Not only are you stepping into their set of rules, but they also change the rules as they go. So,
As we've seen,
yeah, it's
they keep on moving the goalposts.
yep. They even on one thing that's come up in some of the National Assembly meetings is telling people to go up and look up how your state defines the word person. I did that a few weeks back, and I believe there was, I want to say 16 to 17 different definitions of the word person or persons.
And I bet most of them weren't good.
Well, it's not what in a regular conversation you would think would be the definition. But overall, in general, they usually describe a fictitious entity, corporation, agent, an actor, or someone acting in behalf of someone else or something else. Kind of like a lot of these signs that you see about masks and stuff that say all persons must blah blah blah. You know, they're if you look up the definition of these words, none of this stuff actually applies to the living, breathing man. Because, because by their definitions, that is not you.
You have to declare it, make it a distinction.
Mm-hmm.
You are a living soul, not cargo, not chattel. Living soul.
Yep.
Because by their rules, you are not.
That's just a very small example of when you step into their system, how easily they can go from you making a statement or a claim, and you just happen to use the word person. Well, which of the 17 definitions are they going to claim that you used that word? You know, so that's kind of
exactly
the shifting goalpost and them altering the rules as they please. So there really is no winning there.
Yeah, when you step into maritime law, you step into their world, not yours. And they will do with you as they please. However they have to do it.
Question?
They trick you.
Question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is maritime law and commercial law the same thing, or how do they differ?
Are you referring
Never
to
thought about
like UCC, like Uniform Commercial Code, or?
Well, no, I can't say for sure if it's CC, but I'm going to say yes as a guess. I follow a guy that talks about this stuff. He buys Black's Law books, and he's been doing a deep dive on this topic for about 3 years. And he basically broke it down one day. He says, you know what? I finally come. Well, he said first, one thing I caught my ear was he said if you read every edition of every word in a chunk of law, there's usually, well, he said there's always a back door, a loophole, a way out. And then I heard him talk, and he said that basically all law is commercial law. And I've been trying to prove that right or wrong.
Well, these courts operate under maritime law, and essentially, I'm not quite sure if this tangent's going to help define your question or not, but what they're doing is acting as pirates, really, because they're not following the law of the land, they're following maritime law, and they're on the land. They're acting as what common law would describe pirates. It's interesting in a lot of the
That totally makes sense to me when you say that.
Yeah. Okay, good. As far as the commercial law, those were all legal, binding contracts that these corporations make in order to do commerce with each other. And we kind of, at birth, with birth certificates, get sucked into that, because that birth certificate is the creation of a legally defined person, a fictitious entity, and they're kind of sucking you into the corporation by making you believe you are that fictitious entity that's on paper with an all caps name and stuff like that. That I yield.
Thank you, Ed. I almost said, would anybody like the floor? But yeah, the main thing about this is they've used the rules to manipulate and lie to us, to make us so confused that we need an interpreter. Those interpreters go by the name of lawyer. And quite frankly, it's not supposed to be that way whatsoever. All these laws that need interpretations, that have whole freaking libraries full of law books that need interpreters. That's why you got to pay for the, interpretation. That's why it's so expensive. I mean, have you ever tried to hire an interpreter? Those guys get paid bucks.
Well, it's so expensive because they're pirates and they're there to rob you.
Well, yeah. Of course. But, that's, doing a thing. But anyway.
I know.
And during this pause, I'd like to welcome Sean Stryker. Welcome, Sean. And congratulations on the notice.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning. I like your avatar.
Yeah. Yeah, I had to crop it for the photo, but I did what I could.
Right.
Look,
I think you got the gist.
It looks kind of like it looks kind of like someone else's avatar. Imagine that.
Yeah, I don't know if those of you guys who might know Oz, but Oz made that for me. I'm grateful. Looks good. But yeah, what we're in the middle of is, I don't know if you've seen the title that I put up, but basically, how you doing so far with the apocalypse? As it is running, you doing all right? Everything good? Everything bad? Having a shitty time?
Well, they had a scout fire out here, which looked to me like it's just the San Bernardino or the Santa Ana River bottom being on fire again. So on scene TV, they were filming that. And it's like 5 palm trees are on fire, and fire trucks spraying at it here, spraying at it there, and I'm just looking at it like, this is a big deal. 4 or 5 palm trees, really? That's I don't even know. I didn't even know you could label something as a fire when just a little bit of brush like that is, lit up. So it
Well,
did manage to.
people got to have something to do.
Yeah, well, it did manage to stink up the sky
Well-
last night after the national call. When I was walking outside for my usual grocery trip, you could smell all the burnt wood and whatever in the air. So I guess we got that out of it.
I figured you'd still be smelling wood from whatever fires are still going on.
Yeah, I kind of would wonder, though, if someone would just do the proper maintenance and clear out all that dry brush and woodland scrub, would California even be burning at this moment?
Well,
You racist.
they got to keep that perpetual state of emergency going.
Agreed. And
Everybody
brush fires,
must stay in fear.
brush fires and natural disasters are an easy way to declare emergency. Just want to say hello to Veritas and Scrimshaw in the chat. I came straight through into the StreamYard, so I missed all the stuff on YouTube. I see Cali Unknown's also in the chat. So not sure who Mark is, but hello, Mark. And Pseudoscientist, I see you're up here on the panel with us, so good to see you again. And for those who, there's Conservative Patriot. There's a fellow I've been wanting to have drop in here, Rebel Jack. He sent me a little piece of published material, and let's see, I've gotten some screen caps of that because Adobe, they don't want you to share the PDF without paying them a $10 a month subscription. So I'm just like, these bastards, I'll just screen cap my PDF. Screw it.
Hey, Sean.
Yeah.
Question for you. We were discussing earlier how going back to this Republican form of government, of self-government, and using state settlement covenants versus constitutions would change things up a bit and kind of be a modification from the past to improve upon what happened the first go around. And I don't think we did it justice. And I'm wondering if you can help describe the difference or differences between a constitution and a covenant and the benefits of a covenant versus a constitution.
Well, I'll be pretty basic with this, and some of the stuff was also hit on the national call last night. For those of you who aren't there, www.national-assembly.net or national-assembly.net. You'll find the conference call information there and get some indicators of that. And I'm saying that because I'm going to bring it into what they were saying last night. Those who are aware of what a constitution is as opposed to what a covenant is, they sound similar. They're a bit different. A constitution is more of a contract. It's more of a document. A covenant is more of an oath, and usually it involves a higher power. It has more of a religious bond to it. We could think of Abraham and Isaac and God's covenant to Abraham, or God's covenant to Noah regarding the rainbow, which is a side tangent. This is why the rainbow symbol had to be corrupted by the evil of the world. They wanted to slander God's covenant to Noah that man would never be wiped out by water again. Back on point, though, by us doing covenants, when you have a constitution, you have a constitutor. It implies someone's in debt to it. One of the little controversies of the Constitution is that there were articles added. You call them the Bill of Rights. In theory, they should have been a separate document, but they were slapped onto that Constitution, basically to tell the government, you can't screw with these people, and neither can the business element of the government. But that's again a deep dive for you guys to learn about how and why that came about. But if we have a covenant, it allows us to supersede the Constitution as well, because there have been so many drafts and re-edits and so much legalese over time that people tried to slap on top of the Constitution, that it's almost like you have a document that it has great value and great intention. If we got government back to those early drafts of the Constitution, we'd see so much stuff reduced that we'd be very happy. Ron Paul would probably be dancing in the streets. But just to be on a bit more of a smarter side, it's better to have a covenant, because it's a contract you swear before God as an oath, as opposed to a constitution in which it's more you're swearing to government and to man. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but a constitution refers to a body, whereas a covenant would refer to more of a party above you. Again, you're making an oath to your creator that you will honor these words, whereas the Constitution, it's the body politic and the body of we the people assembled. That's the document governing the body. I don't know if that helps distinguish it more or not, but I do make that point because something that's been a theme on our national calls for the last few weeks is people understanding the definition of a person, of a body, of that human being is also another legal fiction term. And a lot of what this global governance wants to do is to turn humans into products and into slaves. Hence the clot shot, hence the wear a mask, submit just like you would for a certain particular faith that is really having some fun with us in Afghanistan. Moving along. If we are considered a gathering of bodies, it dehumanizes us. But if we're a gathering of people who are under a covenant, there is a sacred implication. Again, another way of looking at certain scriptures, it's not entirely correct of saying it, but you could say you have an Old Testament and a New Testament. You could also say you have an Old Covenant and a New Covenant. The Old Covenant was for Israel within that region and those tribes, those 12 tribes. The New Covenant or the New Testament is for the people, the Gentiles, who all of them are to be brought within the family of the kingdom of Israel. And again, this is me putting on a little bit of a scholarly hat. I'm sure there may be some folks who find some nuances or flawed about it, but I'm giving you kind of an overall gist that testament and covenant, a testament when you testify, well, this is the other thing. When you swear to a covenant or take an oath to a covenant, you are testifying to what's in that covenant. I'm not necessarily sure I've ever heard anyone testify to anything that is in the Constitution. They go by the Constitution, or they'll say they're under Constitution, or they have rights with or on top of the Constitution, but they've never sworn to testify to have a testament of the Constitution. Although many of us patriots do have a testament of the Constitution, and that we support it and we see the good things it brings because it's such a good document in those early drafts in its early form before everything after the 10th Amendment started getting screwed with. Don't forget, it's your 7th Amendment that gives you your right to a grand jury. It's your 4th that gives you due process. Your 2nd, of course, is to protect yourself and your family and your community and so on. There's so many different little elements. It's like if you pick any of those first 10 amendments, which really they don't amend anything. Again, they were a whole Bill of Rights added on. You look at those, it's like, which one is your favorite? Which one do you pick? So you're going to say, hey, they're all great, and you testify that they're great. But if you really look at it, you look at the different articles of governance, it's like, does anyone get excited over knowing that there's 3 branches of power and they're divvied up that way so they keep each other in check? That's awesome to know under Article 1 and the rest. But you don't have people going in the street saying, I'm marching for the separation of powers. No, normally they're marching for their freedom to assemble, their freedom, their right to carry arms, bear arms, or their different civil rights regarding the court processes. They think, someone or some political prisoner was, falsely arrested or accused under. You don't see people saying, yes, I'm marching because I agree 2/3 of Congress must be in session. That's, you see, the top part of the Constitution is like the rules. And then you have all the stuff regarding our rights that we already have from God or our creator. were slapped on kind of underneath it when they should have been slapped on top of that, if that makes any sense. If I was playing revisionist, I would say, hey, let's have all these rights, and then in order to ensure these rights, this will be how we govern. Instead, they did it kind of reverse, where it said, okay, here's our governing body, and here's the rights it cannot affect. And again, people misread that. They think the government issues those rights. No, the Bill of Rights bans the government from touching you in these particular fields. They can't touch your arms. So all of these legislations, or Joe Biden, the potato in chief, saying he has guns or planes and bombs, it's how to have them too. Just it hasn't happened in practicality unless you're an extremely wealthy person with your own private island and the budget to have your own armed forces, which would kind of be an awesome, thing to play through eventually if we ever got that wealthy. But, I'm happy enough just paying my own bills, not paying for a family of contractors to live off my land and estate. I think I've gone a little long with that, by the way.
If you think about
I'm
it,
going to yield.
right. Well, if you think about it, I mean, doesn't it come down to your private property is your own nation state?
Yeah,
like if
castle doctrine.
and maybe I said that wrong. Yeah. So, I mean, what do you need to protect your property? Whatever it takes to protect it. And that's the basis of it.
Yeah, just real quick, Veritas makes a very good point about what Destry had said regarding covenants. And also Mark is correct in that, yes, the New Testament, they are legal documents under Judaic law because of the idea of Christ fulfilling the law. So it was like closing out the case. So that's a very good observation. Thank you, Mark. I apologize, Vex. I'm kind of having a brain fart. We were talking the castle doctrine. And yeah, that's the idea. A man's home is a castle. And instead of now it being barons coming together under the Magna Carta to tell the king how to govern, we all become barons. We all, the difference with the way America is supposed to be set up is that no one person is a noble. No one has to go to the government for a permission slip to do business like Washington had to get a charter. And that's something we find today. We got to have a business license, and not just a business license. We have to jump through all kinds of hoops. I always share you guys the example of a pro wrestling event. You have to have the liability insurance bond of $1 million for a single night. Now, what does that mean? It means the insurance companies that are out there, and there's only a handful in California that will insure pro wrestling. They get that insurance agent gets collect. Let's see, about 10 years ago, it was $499. Now, odds are you're not going to cash out the bond. So what does this really mean? It means that guy made $500 for signing a piece of paper in an office. Just, in the hopes that if, Lord forbid, a wrestler falls on a fan or a wrestler breaks his leg, there's money to cover the expense, with a $1 million insurance policy. But think about that. Who goes into business and says, hey, I got $500 just to give to some guy at a desk so I can do business for one night?
Yeah.
Now you see why the WWE is such big business, and why they have so many cost-cutting measures is because they got to go through that stuff on a routine basis. Let's go to another business expense. If you guys want to run, say, a nightclub or a rave club or a party club for whatever genre, rap, hip-hop, heavy metal, you want to run your club and you want to serve alcohol, you don't just have to get a permit to serve the alcohol. Each of your bartenders has to go to courses with training, to check for ID, to make sure someone's drunk, they don't serve them, all the different stuff the very stuff I got when I worked at Rite Aid to check ID and all that at the counter, you have to do that for each of your bartenders. So, multiply that there, say your bar needs 6 bartenders because you expect to have thousands of patrons and it's, spring break or whatever. Well, how much can you afford to spend on all those bartenders to get trained? So they create new obstacles and in the name of doing good, they create new problems for you. Instead of saying, hey, California will train this one bartender and then he's licensed to sign everyone up that he got done training them. Instead, no, you have to send each and every one of them to that liquor license class. Think about that. Could you have a head bartender and he vouches for everybody, kind of make everything flow up into a pyramid, and then if someone doesn't get carded, you fire the head bartender? Nope. You got to have all 6 in our scenario properly trained. So you see, guys, they make it harder with good intentions behind it, because we don't want to have a DUI and someone wrecks their car on spring break. They use that good intention to add further legislation and further onerous oversight, because even as much as we all dislike a DUI and a person getting hurt and car wrecks, you do the math, and it is out of 320 million people, even during spring break, it's still a small percentile, a small number of death there. And yet COVID, gosh, I hope we're not streaming on YouTube, right? But the sniffles, excuse me, the sniffles 19, during spring break in Florida, you had less people dying of sniffles than of car wrecks. And the car wrecks in Florida during spring break were probably very marginal. But you saw more police, and more effort to catching DUIs than to really preventing the spread of disease, i.e. giving people hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, encouraging them to take some time out in the sun, have some oranges, especially in Florida, a big citrus state. That should have been obvious. Hey, everyone, I'm Governor DeSantis. Have some free oranges. Let's beat COVID. You never hear that program coming out. So, again, going back full castle doctrine, going back to us being as if we are the nobles. That's an element. A covenant, if you're swearing to a higher power, I'm kind of actually bringing us back a little bit further. We're swearing to a higher power. That means our household. If you think of the old way in the Judaic law, when someone offended God and did not keep their oaths and the covenants, sometimes that the sins of the father were heaped upon the sons and the daughters. It got biblical, in which whole families were slaughtered, in the course of war, and sometimes curses were placed upon the sons and daughter of one person or another in terms of progeny. So a covenant, again, if you don't keep a covenant, that to me is much bigger of a deal than violating some constitution or some contract. And it's not to diminish our constitution. Like I said, I think it was a divinely created contract, and that there were so many things working against it coming together, but it happened. Everyone got in the right amount of edits and everything, and for a while there we had something pretty nice going on. And then we had things like the War of 1812 and other stuff that kind of turned everything sideways. Go ahead.
One of the questions I have is, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't it written for them to follow those rules and not to impose them?
Well, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
That is the idea, is that the Constitution was to constrain the government, not the people. And some people out there decided, hey, how about we trick everyone into thinking that it's rules for the people and not the government. And that pernicious thought kind of took hold within our halls of power. And they started, how do we do this? How do we do that? If you look back again at the roots of the political parties, essentially the Democrats prior to Andrew Jackson, the parties have their roots, the Whigs and a few of the other early parties have their roots in who had access to newspaper presses, to printing presses. And again, these folks would get so out of hand with each other, they would go and censor each other by way of destroying the presses, because presses back then were expensive to own and maintain. They'd go in and burn the presses. This even happened also to the early LDS church, bringing it into a religious format. People didn't like what the Mormons were printing, so they would go and wreck the Book of Mormon printing presses. And so again, that's a whole different issue. But it contributes to why the early Mormon church was big on the Second Amendment and arming their members, is because they had their property, because they had their own take on religion, they had their property damaged and destroyed. And this isn't to give any side of that argument any leeway. If people want peace, you approach people peacefully. You don't go and wreck their property. That's kind of goes without saying.
But
Good point.
the idea of using
Real
them
quick,
as a go ahead.
I was going to say real quick. Hayden was unmuted. I was seeing if he was going to jump in on this.
A little. Well, what I was gonna say, I got two things. Is Sean, before you hopped on, we were kind of talking about some things, and I made the analogy. I guess it's sort of analogy, but it's pretty true that we're being governed at the moment by pirates, and it becomes more clear when you realize that these people who've taken some of these seats are manufacturing problems and then implementing or presenting the solutions, which all come back to them making money. So I guess it would have helped if I could have said this when I was thinking it, but essentially we have pirates in office who are generating crises and who already have the solutions, and they're presenting these solutions so the corporations can just make more money. And like I said, just robbing the people, kind of like how some of the roll up your sleevers, these jabs are causing medical issues, and some of the companies who are producing these roll up your sleevers are selling more medicine that helps solve a side effect of the jab. So they've created a problem. They're selling these vaccines, and these vaccines are creating more problems, which they can sell more of their medicines to fix some of the side effects from this. So they're just manufacturing crisis to profit, and hence my reference to them being pirates, just out there literally to collect money in any way, shape, or form they can, and enslaving everybody to this system. On a completely different track, my phone that I'm on, my battery's running out, and I got to plug it in. So that means I got to take out the headset. So I'm going to drop off the board for a while, but I'll be listening.
Right on. Thanks, Aiden.
Yep.
If you want to come back on, the link will be the same.
Alrighty. Well, it was
Hayden
nice
Briggs.
talking to you, and hopefully I can get back on later.
Definitely, Hayden. I'm going to try to address your point as you're heading off, and if I need to readdress it later, I will. Hayden had a slip and said private. He was actually pretty close. He could have said privateers, because those were, exclusive pirates working for different buccaneers for the crown and the like. And what they did is they took their piracy from the naval maritime jurisdiction of the different royal navies and the different other places, the ports and waterways, and they expanded it onto the land. The assembly call last night referenced when they expanded that call onto the land was when they gave certain protections to the railroad industry, and that's when it all transferred over. I think it was around 1833 or somewhere thereabouts there. We need to ask Destry about that. Like, he gave a good 15-minute explanation of that. And so it's like, oh wow, because they put the railroads on the land, and railroads are connected to the ports and the docks, and so they wanted to protect them. They brought that jurisdiction forward with that, and then everyone knows that the cities with the streets, roads, and highways sprouted up around the rail lines. So because the people didn't challenge this stuff, it gave them, with the silence is consent philosophy, that no one challenged them. They just kept assuming they had more and more de facto power. So you could see it go from Port Royal there in Hispaniola, modern day, I want to say Dominican Republic. Yeah, Dominican Republic's on the left of Hispaniola. From piracy there under Queen Elizabeth to say, okay, you got a little port there in Miami or New Orleans, and then you go up the Mississippi River or you go up the Missouri River, take your pick, and then you unload your goods onto a dock, and there's the train with the big boxcar next to it. It's part of the same corporation. You could say it's East India Company. You could say it's the Virginia Company. End of the day, they want to get their goods to that store, so they got to have protections and laws for them protecting their cargo. They bring it to that store that's in your town along those roads, along those railroad tracks. Guess what? They're extending the reach. They're extending themselves way out of the water, way beyond what they are intended. Almost like a tendril in a movie, reaching up from a basement to grab the hero during a horror movie or a monster movie and try to pull them down. Well, but wait, if the tendril goes in the sunlight, if you know what it is, the tendril dissolves, or the tendril has to pull back. So that's what we're doing when we're using our constitutional, I don't even want to call them constitutional rights, our God-given rights, and we execute the Constitution. It's like putting sunlight on those tendrils, and they have to retract back into the basement or back into the cellar, and yeah, they're going to hiss, they're going to scream, and they're going to try to pull everybody, with them. But the fact is, they need to stay in their realm, and then we can stay on the dry land in our realm. I kind of related. Yeah, go ahead.
Would that mean that trains are all maritime law now?
Well, I would like to find out the specifics on their jurisdiction, but the big train expansions came about because of Carnegie and Carnegie Steel and the railroads. And Carnegie Rockefellers are one of the biggest factions that are causing us such grief. So, Carnegie Endowment for the Arts, those are the folks financing Sesame Street. So Elmo can teach everybody that if someone touches you, well, in Elmo's case, his voice actor was a pedo. So I guess kind of ironic, if someone touches you, don't tell my voice actor or he'll help them get away.
Well, real quick, Pseudo unmuted. Did you have something to add to it?
Well, I was just going to say that these laws sort of get them to pull back, and I don't think they're ever going to pull. Well, okay, they're not going to pull back now. They pushed all their chips in the middle of the table with this medical apartheid and ID passports and whatever infringements they did with law of the maritime law and railroad tracks. They're coming for everything. When they can force you to put something inside your body, there is no free space left, right? And where's the help for these people from January 6th? I don't see anybody helping them. I don't know. I'm not trying to be negative here. I'm just trying to be realistic, and good luck, but I don't know.
Well, they're firmly entrenched in corporate law. I mean, what can we do other than fight them with other lawyers and stuff like that? I mean, we could, as the assembly, jump right in, but we're not ready for that. We have to have teeth before we can bite. And the teeth are the people joining up. national-assembly.net. Go find your state. Tell them you're there. Tell them you want in on this. Because this is how we stop it. Otherwise, Mad Max stays. Apocalypse. Enough of my soapbox. Sean, you had something further?
I will momentarily. I'm trying to pull up a little something I had earlier. For those who have been watching what I've been posting the last 48 hours, Hayden forwarded me the link to the Canadian Bar Association oath that I had forwarded to you guys a while back. So I've been making sure to circle it around, and I wanted to pull up a cut and paste
Yeah, I
of
got
that
it.
for pseudoscientists here, so you can see what he's dealing with there in Canada. Because the bar guys, they don't. Myself and one of the people in California here, myself and her were looking into that today, and she has access to different law libraries to the schools she had graduated from, and she posted a link, and there's an excerpt in the link that she quoted. The bar attorneys are not hiding this from anyone. That's why they deliberately call themselves esquires and attorneys at law. It is the American people who have hidden their own heads in the sand. And that's kind of an indictment of things. They give us a open secret or an open secret approach. You know, I am Joe Schmo Esquire. It's like he's telling you he's a nobleman. He's telling you where his loyalties are right off the top. So it's not that it's a hidden oath. It's that we haven't raised a stink over it as a people. I'm going to put the link up in the private chat, Vex, if you want to find a way to replicate that. This is from, again, Alberta, Canada,
No
and
problem.
their bar that they have up there. And you'll notice the part that I quote regarding the Queen and her heirs. There's some other references like to the sovereign and stuff in it. And I also used that last night on the national call for people who, again, were questioning this issue. Now, the good news for Canada is you guys are all territories. So like Alaska, your land wasn't properly settled, and you're still under rule as indicated by your flags being on a pedestal. So there's actually hope that Canada, if they're starting to awaken to their freedom, maybe they'll throw off the vestiges of that crown governance and come together and give themselves a proper constitution and form either a covenant or a constitution and retake their land from their overlords. But that's Canada's call. I can only do so much for the United States and for California and for my own county. You know, I'm thinking local, but trying to act national, or at least statewide, as you guys are well aware. Rebel Jack just posted something up too, real quick. I'm just trying to keep up with everybody's back and forth here while we're also making our points on this panel. Let's see.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that Pseudo went ahead and put that link in first.
Oh yeah, we're all putting it up. Excellent. Rebel Jack got a dislikes doing something when the truth pisses off someone. You know, those funny thing about dislikes is those dislikes. Common sense, common law. Look in the railroads along the coast of Florida. Imagine that. I was talking about that same idea of Florida and New Orleans. How did we guess, guys? Because the piracy was the biggest in the Caribbean.
I think that's
Good job,
my first.
common sense, common law.
I think that's my first. I think that's my first dislike. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that means there's more interactions on your channel. That's actually good for the algorithm.
It's just the beginning, then.
Yes. I was going to ask, did someone come into the chat just to give us a dislike and then to drop out? Did they not like me talking about LDS history? Because that's just my hunch, you know, wink, wink. You know, the fact is the LDS church is like, to me, it's the perfect experiment in American history because it's a new religion that was trying to find its footing. You can also use the Quakers, you know, out of Pennsylvania. You could use the Amish, all these different religions that came up after the founding of the country. They all tried to find their footing, and they all got different levels of harassment from the government in different forms, different ranks, different bodies. So it's not to say that any one of them is better than the other, but it is to say that, yes, those early days of this country, you had people, because they were still of the Protestant or Catholic denominations, they weren't liking their new religions being founded and popping up around them. And so they would harass those neighbors. And this is where the government had to step in and say, hey, leave the Amish alone. They can have their buggies and their butter, and they don't have to have telegraph cables because they don't like electricity. Meanwhile, over here, leave the Mormons alone. They like to have a bunch of wives and have their, you know, their addition to the Bible, but leave them alone, so on and so forth. And the case of the Mormon church, because firearms were involved, both against and them defending themselves. That's where it got spun politically, where President Polk's like, you know what? They didn't vote for me, so I'm going to let people take pot shots at them and tie them to trees and whip them and let them die, because what do I care? I'm a president. I'm only going to, support my supporters. I'm not going to support people who wouldn't vote for me as a bloc. And as a result, the Mormons had to form militias to protect themselves, and they accused Joseph Smith of trying to do a revolt because they were stockpiling weapons. That same claim was used against David Koresh over a century later. And you see, guys, if you're aware of your history of not just one religion, not just one state in this country, but everything across the board, you can see that time after time, when government that is separate from the people is expected to do its job, it won't. Or it'll do it as a political favor or to exercise leverage or to pursue an agenda. In the case of President Polk, he did it as an FU to Joseph Smith and the Mormons in Missouri. And then in the case of David Koresh, the Clintons did that because they wanted to start causing issues with patriots like they had with Randy Weaver. And they also wanted to, make anyone who has a church, okay, if you're a church and you think there's end times and the government might come against you, well, let's portray these guys as a cult of personality. Let's go in there and mess with them, and then we can advance a narrative. As much as Ruby Ridge, Waco, and Oklahoma City were all tragedies, you'll see the fingerprints of the FBI pushing all those events in different directions to cause worst case scenarios, as opposed to negotiating in faith to say, hey, how about you come in, you go to jail for the night, we'll do some documents, we'll have a trial, and everyone goes home alive. They came in with force, with the ATF and with people, from Ruby Ridge. The government has people on loudspeakers taunting Randy Weaver that they just shot his wife and she died and it's his fault. To Waco, that, oh, gee, there's kids in there, but let's just go throw some grenades in that'll burn things up. Not to mention some of the other stuff that goes along with that. In the case of Oklahoma City, you had multiple people seen at the site and other people working with McVeigh and the other dude. And, oh, gee, the building blows up with those other dudes. Nobody ever finds them again. Kind of like 9/11, and these agendas are that those folks in power said, you know what, we'll use this Constitution and tell the people they're below it, not above it. And we'll keep refining it and adding our legalese in to strip away the context of that Constitution so that the people will think they have less rights than they really do. And a lot of the people fell for that. And those folks pushing that were the same folks pushing the piracy, because they eventually wanted to be able to pirate everybody on the land, not just the people who lived by the railroad tracks or on the wrong side of the tracks.
How far back in time would
Right.
you have to go before they when did they start messing with the Constitution? How far back would you have to go?
Which time?
Would you have to go right
to
back
be
to
honest,
the beginning?
Possibly. We had the Articles of Confederation, and those were pretty good. You may or may not know about the Universal Postal Union. That's another little rabbit hole I took a peek at actually a week ago. I looked into some of that. I'm just like, oh, wow, this makes sense. The Articles of Confederation were holding the United States or the colonies back then together, but it wasn't done in a way that the rest of the world liked. Talk about a big screw you from the rest of the world. Follow me here. The colonies under the Articles of Confederation were confederated. They were all together. They were pals. They'll stick up for each other, what have you. But because they were all as sovereign nation states, they weren't willing, if Georgia owes, say, X amount of money in tariffs to Spain, well, Virginia is not going to chip in to help Georgia out. There's not going to be a guarantee of that. Things of that nature. So with the Universal Postal Union, which back then that was unfortunately under maritime jurisdiction. This is one of the reasons why the post offices are still a big deal. Why you have as the first postmaster general. To be in the Universal Postal Union so that goods would be shipped into your colonies, they wanted the United States to essentially have a business contract that as a collection, all these nation states, this new nation would back out each of its independent factions, that if there was a business deal and somebody came all the way across the ocean to deal with the colonies, and the colony X reneged on it, at least they wouldn't lose their money. The colony Y and Z would be like, okay, here's the money, we got you, we'll take care of that. And it's kind of like what you saw with the European Union, that Greece and Spain were always getting bailed out, by the fortunes of Britain and Germany and France. And that template lasts today, where everyone thinks of Alabama. Oh, Alabama's a red state and they're always poor. Well, it's just Alabama's economy is not very well set up. Doesn't matter whether it's a red state or a blue state. It's just the economic opportunities there are kind of limited, especially when you have a hurricane come through every so often and wipe everything off the map. You can't really rebuild when there's like 10 to 15 year cycles of hurricanes that do that. So they said, if you want to be in the Universal Postal Union, you guys have to come together with a constitution, some type of contract that rules you, says you all agree to some type of government, and so on and so forth. And that's one of the roots, one of the drivers behind the Constitution, because the Articles of Confederation, while they sound good, if you look into the functional parts, there were some errors that needed to be addressed. And you also had stuff during that time period like Shays Whiskey Rebellion, and there was a couple other whiskey rebellions. George Washington had to mount up, take some militias, aka armies of their day, and go put down those rebellions. And that's also where they started thinking, maybe we do need a standing army as well in case we have revolts. So again, the idea of these government things came about in increments, and then the increments eventually became trends. And during Jefferson's time period, we saw the expansion of political parties. We also saw the Louisiana Purchase. I would say with the Louisiana Purchase, America was pretty much a free nation. Things were going good, give or take the different arguments about the Constitution. Stuff was good. The War of 1812, that was the British essentially trying to reestablish their rule over us, and they got some pretty good rule over us. They managed to burn the White House for one. We had battles now with the Canadians, and a lot of this, the British didn't have to do this. It's that in terms of the generations of their ruling class, they wanted to do this. It was a way to thumb their nose back at the colonies. Okay, the colonies fought for independence. Treaty of Paris, we essentially, okay, great, we're still involved with the crown, but we're not. Guys, looking at the fine print on the Treaty of Paris, it's essentially at that time when we portray that the colonies went up against the biggest naval empire in the world, the British Empire, it wasn't just us alone. Our allies were, see if these nations ring any bells. Our allies were the French, the Spaniards, and also this nation called the Russians. Yeah, Russia had our back then too. And basically, if you follow world history, the British, the Anglo-American establishment later on, has been trying to screw over those empires ever since. Give or take the Germans, which are intermarried into the British Empire. That's the Habsburg Gulf bloodlines that became Prince Charles and Queen Elizabeth and all that. So that's where you got your Saxons.
Vlad the Impaler.
You get your Saxons, Saxony, and Vlad the Impaler and all that tied in through Eastern Europe, through Germany, and then up into England. But the Spanish, the French, and the Russians, they've been getting messed with ever since, whether it was the German faction or the British faction messing with them. And that also is kind of a breakdown of the religions too. The Orthodox and more Catholic branches battling the Protestant branches. You can see it that way as well. Well, we fast forward, all those wars of religion. The U.S. is like, you know what? We don't want any wars over religion, so we will not make a theocratic state. We're not going to say you have to go to a specific church, whatever, or one church is better than the other, yada, yada. It doesn't say don't go to church. That's where a lot of atheists get it confused. They still wanted a moral and just people with some type of ethics to be involved in the civic in their civic duties. But the issue at hand, that Treaty of Paris, other nations were parties to it. If you actually look into it, Spain gave up some islands in the Caribbean and chunks of Florida. France gave up some holdings. Russia gave up, everybody renegotiated the chessboard, but there were minor concessions. The reason those nations, though, backed us as the colonies was so that while we warred with Britain, Britain's attentions were not on those little islands and things that those different nations claimed at the time. So the British didn't really consider us as having a war of independence. They considered it a bigger war against the French and the allies of France. And they're like, okay, the colonies were part of this war with France. And, as part of that, we're dealing with them. It's like they view us now as stepchildren versus natural children, natural born children. We became their illegitimate stepchild, if that makes any sense. Just like the French Indian War, you had all those Native American tribes and the French tribes battling the British, while the colonies were basically the British outposts in the New World fighting against them. It wasn't like we were necessarily our own nation at that time. Although, because the British really weren't having the colonies back, that's where the colonies started developing the identity of being alone from England and saying, you know what, General Washington, General so-and-so, Benedict Arnold, all you guys, we're kind of doing our own thing here. Why do we even need the English? We fended off the French colonists and we fended off the Iroquois nation and, the other different tribes. They would rally against us. Maybe we should do our own thing. And that took hold. And again, when you have the differences between the noble class and the commoners, and then the British saying, yeah, if you're a buccaneer and you got a slip from the Queen of England or the King, you can raid anyone's ships. Oh, yeah, that includes colonist ships, too, by the way. So we literally see that, yeah, to do business with the rest of the world, we had to form a constitution of some sort instead of the Articles of Confederation. But at the same time, as far as a document goes, it was the best document of its time and the most, probably one of the most well-debated and well-reasoned documents. So you can't, it's like, you can't hate on the blueprint when the blueprint's so damn good. Pardon my French. And then the other issue of it is that there are procedures for we the people to resume having that type of constitutional common law governance if things go too far overboard. But people don't know that the overboard element has been exceeded back in the time of Lincoln. People got so used to government infringing on their rights that it kind of became, oh, that's the government. What can you do? And that's where people's mindset is wrong. It's not that's the government. What can you do? It's, okay, what can you do? And how will the government react to you? A lot of us are thinking reactionary, whereas something like the assemblies and all that is proactive. You get involved, you do stuff, and then you create the grievances, the requisitions. You create the notices that say, hey, we're doing this, and don't give us any reason to put you on notice, because if we do, we go through the process and your bond is up for grabs, not ours. You notice none of us are like pulling money together to create some bond for the assemblies, because guess what? There's not going to be a bond for the assemblies. The people are not going to be holding money in common so that, some agitator or some lawyer can go, ooh, look at that. We've already thought through that. I'm just checking the comments again. And yeah, Rebel Jack, I don't know what to make out of your visual for Mormons, but okay. Anyway, something to also pass word to you guys, Vex and also pseudoscientists. There's a young fellow named Sage, and he comes from Army Logistics. I was on a way late night last night with him and talking with a lot of our friends that are in these regular panels and stuff. Good panel, and he's looking for people to, either be parts of roundtables, to be pro, be con. Very well-spoken fellow. If you're running Army Logistics, as far as I know, it's just Sage at the moment. I'll have to figure out what the last name of his channel is. Basically, I was in like we are in StreamYard here when people closed down their YouTube feed. In this case, Dangerous Freedom had closed it down, but we managed to have like a 9 to 10 person 2-hour post feed StreamYard chat. This fellow's very well-spoken, very knowledgeable. And I'm looking at this not as an assembly thing, but just a chance for if you guys want to go into discussing things like military topics of the world, possibly assembly topics, and like things like Afghanistan and other stuff. He uses, in his case, he uses like where products are flowing to, where supplies are going to. Like, okay, if a troop movement is here, but there's no food and no ammunition being shipped with the troops, then it could be a bluff, But if there's a whole bunch of supplies being shipped, then that means, yeah, they plan for those troops to stay there. And then he'll track something else like, shipping containers from China going to Australia, and how much is spent versus how much was spent for them to come to Long Beach. And, like, this guy's pretty on the ball. So I figured I'd bring him up in terms of just if we like good cerebral conversation. It looks like we found somebody who can hold his own, and that's kind of a positive thing as time goes on.
The link?
I think I will try to do that. I'm just letting you know, if I switch over to YouTube for a second, I might risk us dropping the chat. So I kind of wanted to preface that if I thumb around on my phone with, since I'm on my phone and not my desktop, with a link, I might drop here for a second. But I'm going to pull up my YouTube panel and see if I can get you guys his channel link. And this is just a word of mouth thing. I think we got ourselves someone who is not just a prior service, but someone who can break stuff down for you guys in terms of not hoorah, I got a firearm, I'm going to fight the enemy, but more like, hey, think about it like a chessboard, and here's where the pieces are, here's where the other pieces are, and here's where a third batch of pieces are. And now look at what their available moves are, and because of their supply trains, can they make those moves? It's like me and him clicked immediately because I come from the comm background, communication. If you don't have comms, you can't navigate your logistics, let alone your troop movements. So this is, again, a word of mouth thing, much like our assembly is. When we find like-minded patriots who want to put out information and analysis, and Vex, I think you'll highly get along with him. Let's see, it's Sage News, and if you find his channel, it has a flag background, looks like some type of role-playing game character, and then green lettering. So I am going to pull up the link here real quick, going to share. Copying link. And this isn't so much a matter for us to say, oh, let's all run over that channel. I'm saying, no, take this link, guys. When he goes live, if you like what he has to say, awesome. I also, as you guys know, I talk about Lee Wilbarger a fair amount on his channel the last 72 hours. He's usually kind of level-headed, but dude, Joe Biden has brought out a new level of disdain from Lee. I've never seen Lee so angry, and I can't blame people, in any of us in the armed forces or in the alphabet agencies. When we saw what just went down this last week in Kabul, Joe Biden, as far as I'm concerned, he's not a commander in chief, and he's not commanding anything, and they should invoke the 25th, and they should have done it a long time ago. Now we got, a dozen plus Marines, one out of Norco, which is in my county, another out of Moreno Valley, also in my county, that have paid the price because of ineptitude. So, when we got people that feel the way we do about this.
As he's doing, and I am convinced it's all on purpose, as
It
bad
is.
as he's doing, who is going to replace him that isn't worse?
Well, I don't have any love for Kamala Harris. At least she's younger and half awake. At least she can, at least if she's going to lie to us, we'll know she's coherent when she's lying and not someone pumping crap into her ear. And that's good, because you want them to be aware that
I don't think she's going to be any better. In fact, I think she'd be way worse.
Well, I agree she'll be worse, but she'll have that light in her eyes where you'll be able to look at her and she'll be like, you'll tell when she looks left, looks right, that she's going to be like, oh, they're not believing it. I'm in trouble. Joe, he's so out of it, he doesn't even know that he's making up fictions as he goes on. And yeah, Scrimshaw's been watching Lee with me, as well as a few of the others. And I cannot say enough about Lee Wilbarger just having a real level head anti-troll approach to his news. But when you're a guy who operates drones for Ukraine, and then it's a calm YouTube show and everything's all chill, And then you hear the guy go up to dropping some F-bombs and stuff. And, basically he's doing like a dub over while Joe Biden's press conference went on yesterday, where he's like, that's BS. That's BS. It's like, wow. Folks have commented I try to be a nice guy with my language. Yeah, Lee's kind of that way too. I mean, he'll drop the S word or what have you, but like Biden has made our country, all of us, on edge. And that's one thing with us. Do we have a commander in chief, or do we have a president of a corporation who is just a puppet figurehead who is making a gazillion bad choices? And these choices, if you think of it as a business, these choices are meant to hurt our business and help China's business. And that includes the loss of human capital or the gain of human capital. And our gain is going to be all these refugees, but our loss is going to be our troops who would have defended our corporation or our nation, whichever you want to pick and, consider it. Some folks will want to fight for the de facto, some will want to fight for the de jure. End of the day, they're still going to be killed by this idiot. So I'm going to end my screen for a second. Go ahead, guys.
Yeah, Pseudo, you were going to speak up?
I forget what I was going to say now.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry about that, Pseudo. I go long sometimes. Okay, I go long all the times, but go ahead, guys.
Machine Gun Sean. But the only way out of this is the assembly. It's we the people standing together getting this shit done, and the more people we can get into it, the better off everyone's going to be. Because right here, what we're doing is the template that the rest of the world will end up following. That is, if we can keep them from, making everything degenerate into complete chaos and more. We can do that. We can keep that from happening, but we have to have the people in place. We have to put bodies who want to learn and want to take control. And I don't mean that as in, control freaks and stuff like that. No, we have a specific way we have to do things. Otherwise, you're just going to screw yourself, because the corporation does not want us to succeed. And they will look for every opportunity to keep you from succeeding. So we have to do everything precisely, correctly, read every word. And just thinking about that makes my head hurt. But I do it nonetheless, because no matter how many times I have to read a damn document to understand it, I have to read it however many times it takes. That's it. I'm not good in this aspect, but I'll fucking learn it, because this has to be learned. This has to be applied, and we have to take all this back. And we have to instruct the rest of the damn nation about it, and then the rest of the damn world. So we need everybody, all hands on deck. And I strayed away from what you were talking about. Are you back in, Sean?
I'm still here. A mutual friend of ours gave a thumbs up to me, sending him the civil peacetime flag and the link to CaliforniaDeJure.org. We've got the webpage down. We're just working on creating the forums, that sort of thing. And so that friend, I'm going to send him the screen caps of the USA Today notice that went out. For those who are not aware, also, notice was sent from the San Francisco Chronicle. So the approach was, instead of just limiting the publication to one newspaper, why not hit both newspapers? This way, if there's any silly business, guess what? They might have got one newspaper, but they didn't get the other. So kind of a little, it's not so much a Hegelian dialect, but more of a, we doubled our chances to get notice in case anyone got in our way. So I'm kind of stoked about that.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, guys. I want to give you guys
some.
Yeah, go ahead, and I'll give you something awesome to cap it with. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is something we put up in the stream earlier. Rebel Jack sent me it. I don't know if you can see the screen or not.
I'm on the StreamYard, so bear with me for a second. I'm just collapsing that other person's tab so that they know the notice was published. Let's just say it's a mutual friend of ours in Colorado. We haven't seen him for a while. I'm hoping, this gives him some good hope and re-inspires him, because I'm about, guys, getting all of you, get that little fire in your soul. In Dangerous Freedom last night, I was exhorting and, encouraging the Patriots in his chat, quit being black-pilled and let's get white-pilled. White-pilled is, being optimistic, being in the light of Christ, that, you're going to carry on and things are going to turn out. Because guess what? If you believe in the Bible, then you got to believe in all of it, which means that, yeah, there's going to be some death and destruction, but the good guys win in the end. God wins, as the different people will like to say. So if you believe in that, quit being mopey. The ones who get their heads lopped off by this evil system, those are the most highest and most powerful of us all. One of my favorite Christmas songs is "A Faith of Our Fathers" by Bing Crosby. I could care less that he's a drunk Catholic. The lyrics of the song point back to when people were proud to die for the cross, because they would hold to that at sword point. They would not change their faith because they knew their principles were worth dying for. They didn't seek murder, but they would not die. And that's something folks have to understand, is that we have a country of people. A lot of us are rediscovering our principles and our morals, but are you willing to stand on principle? That's literally a phrase out of the court system, out of law. Do you stand on principle? What is your standing? Well, here's a question for you guys. Let's back this up a little. Can you stand on water? Can you stand in the maritime? No, you're going to sink. But if you stand on the land, as in common law, if you stand on the rock, not the sand where the water meets the land, but on the rock, guess what? You have standing. You guys get it yet? If you have the water try to come over you, the maritime reach over you and drown you and claim you, put you in the realm of the dead, you have to break through it to get to the realm of the air, the ecclesiasta, the spirit, the breath of Christ. You guys get it? Land, air, water. I'm getting a little esoteric on you, but I'm throwing this out so you guys understand, to stay hopeful and to inspire others, because that inspiration, perspire, expire, inspire, it's all related to breath, the breath of life. You guys following me here? So that's what I'm doing. Yeah, see, Rebel Jack just put that only Jesus can stand on the water because he has the keys over death. Exactly. The ancient Incas, Aztecs, all these religions viewed water as the realm of the dead because the dead bodies can float in it. Otherwise, they sink. But on the land, nobody sinks. Everybody is there on the land. You're solid. Your footing is secure. And the difference between land and water is, yeah, I see that you have the posting of the notice. I appreciate that, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you, Rebel Jack, as well, for getting the word out. I've been going to different places today, putting that word out, and then sharing with my county assembly as well. Trying to make sure everyone has that, because that notice right there, folks, that is a rebuttal. That is a rebuke of this maritime governance. Look at that. We did our findings. We are finding that we must reform the assembly, that we must reform the grand jury. We must reform government. That's, they got their time to rebut it. I'd be surprised if they even know how to rebut it this day and age. But let them try. And going
at
along.
this stage of the game, though, if they see you coming, if they see that this is all falling apart, will they not just enact some type of emergency or martial law and throw all the rules out the window?
They already threw all the rules out the window.
We're already in martial law.
Yes, we've been in martial law since Libra Code under Lincoln.
Right.
This is what the West doesn't understand. Us history nerds, we understand it. That's why the SWAT team can kick in your door and pull you away at night, because you're already under the martial law. So we are taking ourselves out of that maritime law and saying that you are no longer going to be acknowledged as law by not just a few of us, but by all of us. The bigger element too is when Trump said we were in a trade war with China. If the U.S. is a corporation, guess what? It's business as trade. So we are in war already with China, not with the de jure people of China, but with their government, yeah, we are in a war. And instead of having radiological events, they decided to go with biochemical, because bioweapons, like I've told people, you can bleach down the surface of a restaurant or the surface of a bar. You can bleach down machine equipment in a factory, and then boom, the infrastructure is ready to go again. And that's what's been happening globally. China is buying up infrastructure. They loan South Africa money for railroad tracks. South Africa and other countries, they can't pay it back. China comes in and says, okay, we're seizing the assets because you couldn't pay it off. And now, by the way, we have a colony here, and you're going to have to deal with it. And, you guys are wondering, you notice Australia, how violent and brutal the police are getting there? Well, amazingly, a lot of Chinese are getting into that area, along with a lot of folks from the Middle East. So I wouldn't be surprised to find out that maybe a fourth of law enforcement in, say, Australia, New Zealand, France, Germany, all these places that have the over-the-top law enforcement, I'm guesstimating about 25% of them are foreign nationals that are working in law enforcement in hopes of getting green cards, visas, or citizenship. But because they have no loyalty to the people, because they are not common law, they are not from those lands, they are not going to, for one moment, consider the common law rights of the people in those lands, in those territories. Common law rights exist whether or not you come up through an Anglo-Saxon tradition, because rights, again, come from your creator. Now, just because people want to say we're going to throw it all out the window and violate rights, one, it doesn't mean that they can. They can do that, but then it's up to every individual whether they pull a trigger or not. And most of the folks in the armed forces, if they have a decent drill instructor or drill sergeant, they will understand what a lawful and unlawful order are, and they will use their request mass process to deny or decline the order. Moving on along, in the case of the governors of the United States, they had themselves a nice couple of visits. The most well-known one is when Mike Pompeo had them all rounded up and said, hey, we know which ones of you are in bed with China and which ones aren't. So Mike Pompeo put them on notice, and we were also involved in a similar process. And essentially, they were told to, leave the assemblies alone. This is the Great American Experiment. The Great American Experiment.
Pompeo is one of my favorite American politicians, actually.
Yeah, a lot of people like him. The Great American Experiment is, essentially they keep collapsing our economy every time we are about to pay off our national debt, so that we're not truly a free people. If you're a debtor, you're a slave. That's from the Old Testament. He who owns the credit is the ruler. He who is the debtor is the slave. And this is the issue is, when people say America is not a Christian nation, in theory it is not a Christian nation, because we have two masters instead of one master. Your master is supposed to be God or Christ. It's not supposed to be whoever you owe a debt to, because that's on your mind when you're in debt. So the goal for Americans to be a Christian nation is to throw off our debt. And so, yeah, we are aware we have people unconstitutionally and out of law, illegally, if you want to go with the legal side of the house, trying to keep us in debt. And they're using trade war to do so. Trump renegotiated our bankruptcy so we have a chance of paying it off. Now we, the people, have to make sure the levers of government that are working against our own interest are neutralized so that we do pay off that debt, or we absolve ourselves of that debt since we did not sign on to it, and let China go pound sand, let all these other nations go pound sand. And, that said, we're not the ones who invented this debt scheme either. So when those folks come collecting, they can go collect to their own bankers who created all the inflated numbers with all their inflation and the Federal Reserve Board. Last I checked, most people prefer Austrian style banking, when what's in your account's what's in your account. Whereas the banks like to do Keynesian style banking and fractional reserve banking. And it's like, wait a moment, how come the bank gets to say there's $1,000 for the $100 you deposited, but if you go and your account's at $100 and you spend $101, they charge you an overdraft fee? You see, again, two-tier system, their law versus your laws. Rebel Jack says, perfect time for the military versus peace flag segue. Good point,
Compound
Rebel.
interest, world banking, it's all digital slavery.
Correct.
Like the fact you have to pay taxes on your
Scrimshaw
house, you
said,
lose it. is just insane to me. You shouldn't have to feel threatened that you're going to lose your home ever.
Well, again, too, isn't that an extension of government coming off their jurisdiction onto the land and trying to grab what's not theirs? You know,
We
when
have to
Barack
set this up
Obama
way
expanded,
differently. I agree that there has to be some form of government or a rules system. I agree there has to be somebody. Everybody has to put a few pennies in the pot in the middle to build things up. But to take somebody's home or I want to change everything. This is all backwards to me.
well, we're going backwards to go forward. The idea of an assembly and our de jure governance is that we are the oversight until the people are ready to plug into the different gaps. So a good example would be out here once our county is settled. We're going to issue our different instructions, but say we don't like that county board of supervisors and they're corrupt. Then we form a de jure board of supervisors, and people have to be committed to being in those different seats. And that's been the issue. The civic duty of every Americans are like, oh, we're too busy with work because we're in debt to go there. We're too busy with work because, our money's inflated to where we need two parents to provide an income. So our kids are being raised by the state while we're away. So once you get people actually saying, hey, I'm going to volunteer, I'm going to take a loss and I'm going to volunteer X amount of hours a week to be a member of the board of supervisors, and the de jure side, then great. You got a sheriff, the sheriff, he can get compensated, but you got people who make a career out of being sheriff. That was never an intention for a sheriff. Now, some people who are trained in law and military style techniques gravitate towards that role, but that was an elected position as much as a president was, or as much as a congressman is. So why do you have people making a lifetime out of those elected positions?
Real quick, I want to jump in. Epstein
Sure.
asked this question. I got this through a source that the U.S. Defense Department is at least 50 years ahead of what we are being shown. Have you seen those robots there ready to roll out? And will it be basically us versus them? In a way, yeah. But if we can do the assembly the way it should be, then no. Those are ours. Those are owned by we the people. That's our tech. Everything the government's been working on, all the black ops, all the freaking under the table projects and all that stuff, that's ours. Plain and simple. But if it gets drug out and we are not able to assemble in time, then yes, it very well could be that. They will use their drones and they will use their robots and their AI, and they will use everything at their disposal to eliminate us, all of us, because that's their mission, to get rid of us. And we stand directly in their path. And I don't know about anybody else, but I ain't having it. They will not win because I say so. End of story. So no, that's not going to happen.
They don't really stand in their way. They're able to do anything they want. They just understand, unlike most people, that we have enough numbers to F them up. They just want to reduce our numbers so low that we could never. They don't want to be threatened by us. As powerful as they are, they can't stand that the lowlifes actually have a little bit of stroke. Right? That's why there's such a kibosh on the truth. Because once people know, they have a hell of a time getting it out of their head, right? Because truth crushes all lies.
Yes.
But that was my question earlier.
But the thing is numbers aren't necessarily the issue. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to bring up earlier, communication. You said we need communication. Well, we don't have a form of communication. Like all sites, well, almost all sites, and I wouldn't be surprised if it isn't all sites, are being monitored or controlled or something, right? Or honey traps or whatever. Like,
I would,
so if we ever had an issue, how do we
if
communicate?
not there,
I'm just saying, we're at.
no, there's always, smoke signals, but I'm joking. Well,
Well, I'm wondering if writing letters is an
communications
option.
is something that,
Right?
say that again.
I was wondering if writing letters is an option.
Say that again.
Like going back in time. Writing letters?
Essentially, going back in time is what we're doing. We're basically rolling back all the bullshit that's on top of what should be. So, basically, when that's done, then we take control of all this stuff that they do, and we shut
Really?
it
They're
down
just going to
or
hand
keep
it.
it going,
You're going to
depending
write a
on.
piece of paper and they're just going to hand over the power. Here you go.
They have no
Sorry.
choice.
You caught us. I
have
don't
no-
know.
Yeah,
I don't
they
know.
have no choice.
Well,
It's
they
written
have
in
the
their basic
military
code.
They
complex.
would,
They
but
have
they're
options.
They, Sean, go ahead.
so that they don't cannibalize each other in their own court system, because they're like a bunch of piranhas or a bunch of sharks going for the same steak, and they don't want to accidentally bite out their own innards of their mates. They always have a certain set of laws, a certain set of rules, and catch 20 themselves. Part of that was their word is their bond. This is where the insurance surety bond comes into. If they don't honor their oaths that they take, their bonds are up for grab, and they'll never be employed again once they violate such oaths. So the assemblies have that option of catching them in their oath, and that's what the notice is to do. The notices are saying that, okay, if you are doing X, Y, or Z, just like when the founders petitioned for grievances against the crown, against King George, and then the Declaration of Independence, they said, look, we petitioned about these items. We did not get an appropriate response from King George. So we're finally at our last resort. We have to break off. And that's what the assemblies are doing. When all the people step away from using, say, de facto currency, the de facto currency becomes worthless. When everyone quits buying, their products through Amazon, Amazon's stock tanks. In the case of the military tech guys, the military keeps coming to us and asking us, are you ready yet? Are you ready yet? That's been something a few of us have been hearing about, because you could say it's white hats and black hats in the military. The black hats in the military are maybe less than 10%, to be completely honest. Most people don't join the military because they want to, major in gender studies, or in, learning how to dye their hair purple. They join the military either to get out of poverty because they want to move onward and upwards, which means they're a capitalist, or because they want to do it out of a sense of duty, and sometimes a mix of the two. So that's something you have to ponder, is the military is not really poised against us. They're just waiting for us to issue the requisitions to begin the tribunals that everybody wants to LARP about. And in our case, we have to assemble. That way there is a mandate, or at least a precedent, of 38 states telling the military, go ahead and tell the commander-in-chief we're ready. Commander-in-chief's like, what do you want? Here's the list. Alaska's already done this, guys, and so has Michigan. Michigan first, in fact. And some of these things are still playing out in front of us. We can go all the way back to looking at even Benghazi was an indirect result of the assemblies, because they told President Obama no boots on the ground in the Middle East, and Obama had to abide by that. So him and Hillary got sneaky and said, well, we'll just get some CIA contractors that work for the corporation by way of the State Department, which is the front for the CIA. Think of the CIA as essentially industrial sabotage, and you'll understand how the State Department and all of that spy nonsense works. Well, fast forward, they decided they're going to put people into Benghazi. Stupid move. The military was not allowed to do anything. They could circle over, they could observe, they were not allowed to intervene. So those deaths are on Hillary and Barack Obama's heads, because they knew they went against the will of the people. So when Hillary asks what difference does it make, makes a lot of difference. It shows that when you try to work against the will of the people, you're going to be caught up in a mess that is going to basically destroy your political career 4 or so years later. Let's see, Benghazi was what, 2011? So 5 years? She still hasn't recovered from that.
No. And the thing about it is, they know all this. They know they know exactly what's going on with us. They know that the military is just waiting for us to speak up. They know to their core that this is their one thing that can bring all this down.
Anarchy
It's the only
Television's
thing.
asking about the enforcement. Anarchy Television's asking about the enforcement measure within your community. If you have an issue between yourself and a neighbor, you solve it. If not, you can bring two others. Bring it to your grand jury in your community. But the sheriff, in terms of if you need someone with a sidearm, your sheriff is constitutionally obligated to protect his constituents and uphold the Constitution. That's another oath that can be pulled. And again, when we're talking on the national level, the armed forces are already plugged in on that, as the commander in chief is accountable to we the people, not the CEO of the corporation. So a lot of what you're seeing right now is a CEO of a corporation mishandling how to withdraw his corporate assets, because if you guys understand, Biden was never a businessman, and as a lawyer, he was a crap lawyer at that. So they really, the Democrats wanted a puppet they could control, so they picked the worst of the worst, knowing they could manipulate him because he's just not that smart. But at the end of the day, when he has to make calls on policy, you get what you see right now. And unfortunately, yes, people die. I've always compared this situation. Someone brought up an analogy about retail stores, and I explained, if a corporation, United States Incorporated, was halfway smart, they'd want to do things for profit and to gain and to get better. The problem is the managers of the store, the manager of the corporation, say you're in a Kmart and Walmart's your rival. Well, in the case of the corporation, Walmart bought off the management of Kmart, and there might be some real life stuff related to that, but
I can't remember
needless to say,
where
Right.
you guys were, but Trump said, well, we should take the oil, and the media lost their minds.
yeah, Trump was
right.
talking like a
If
businessman.
you're paid to finance global peace, you should be able to take a few spoils. But only every other country gets to do that, not America.
It's not just that, because here's the thing. Iraq, the oil now goes to China or to other foreign powers. And that's been the thing, is we've been conquering, winning all these so-called wars and police actions for the last 50 to 60 years. And the assets go to our enemies or go to our competitors. So if you're going to have a company.
Your enemies say you haven't won a war since World War II.
Yeah, the Marine Corps would beg to differ. We lost the media war in Vietnam, but we didn't lose any battles. We even won the Battle of Way City. But again, you play all the casualties on the TV screen and have Walter Cronkite play that he's against us, and all of a sudden it flips the narrative. And that's really that's the first example of information war really flipping a war. But that's a side tangent. The issue for Trump is, why are we paying for other countries to do X, Y, Z? Panama Canal, that's being ran by China right now. George H.W. Bush sent our guys down there to take it from his drug dealing buddy Noriega, and then what do we do with it? We turned it over to the Chinese.
We did.
That's been an ongoing trend.
The globalists did. The powers that be are setting China up to win, right? That's why all the banks are never dumping a shit ton of money and they're trying to save it. They're all going to lose their shorts. You can't save China.
Hey, Sean.
China can't be saved.
Yeah, what's going on, Vex?
Sorry. Anarchy has got this question going on, and I was wondering if you might want to speak to the, I don't know, back when basically the Democrats walked out of Congress and military became in charge. Maybe speak to that a little bit. Maybe that'll illuminate.
Yeah, Anarchy Television, when we had our, the South referred to as Southern War, the Northern War of Aggression, which actually, you do enough deep diving, it turns out it was. When Congress when the South walked out of Congress, it went into scene day. And the correct thing to do for that is to wait for another opportunity to have Congress form again. Lincoln screwed the pooch. He put the country under martial law, and he never got to retract the martial law. So the military has been running things until the people return to self-governance. That was the clause Lincoln put in. So the assembly process we're doing is returning to self-governance to show that we the people can govern people.
And the military, basically, the military hired the Virginia Corporation, right?
Yeah, Virginia Corporation. Hold on, I got a system user interface isn't responding screen, and that's because my phone's getting real hot. So just let you know, if the phone shuts down on me, I'll try to reboot it with one of my other battery packs, but the heat on the phone is making it really awkward to handle. Anyway, yeah, to be on point, Virginia Company was renamed because that was the original charter for us. It was renamed in the United States Corporation, United States Inc. That's when it went to capital letters. They also started doctoring the Constitution afterwards to reflect that. So when a person swears an oath to the Constitution, technically, like in the Marines, we were taught there is a USA corporation. Smedley Butler's War is a Racket exposed that years ago. That, he was down there fighting for Chiquita Banana, not for, people's rights. Because, those were Americans in a company. They went down, they exploit the plantation workers. Plantation workers revolt. Well, your job as a Marine is to make sure the Americans don't get killed and also make sure the assets of the United Fruit Corporation don't get burned down or destroyed. So, you take an oath, you're taught and you're thinking that it's to the Constitution. You got images in your head of George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, Ben Franklin, and Adams and Madison. You don't got images in your head of, the stock market and Wall Street. And because the military does not separate that for you and explain until you're already in boot camp, the recruiters are using a form of fraud on you. So fraud vitiates any loyalty to the corporation. Your loyalty is to the common law and the Constitution. And if you read into the oaths, it includes that as well. Hence why you also have the option, again, of refusing unlawful orders. They don't say refusing illegal orders. They say unlawful. So that's something to contemplate with that. Go ahead.
You said the military is just waiting for the people to take back the power. And you also said that they're waiting for the people to prove that they can govern themselves. That sounds
Correct.
like a loophole. That sounds like a loophole, meaning even if you got it back, they'll say, well, you haven't proven that you can govern yourself, because they'll say you did this wrong.
That's where the numbers come in. Because there are rules to everything we're doing. Even this. We have to have 38 states to show that we are ready. Plain and simple.
Have you done the math?
Yeah,
do you think you can get 38 states? Is there enough red ones?
How many do we have as of late, Sean?
Easy estimate before I got sidetracked last night during the call and then went back on because my phone did what it's doing now, where it did a shutdown. We had 27 on the call, and we tend to average around 30. We just need to get over that last hump of the last 8 or so states. So we used to have 38 states, and then a Vatican infiltrator that Vex is aware of, she came in and she pilled 20 states away. Because what she did is she appealed to egos. And look, if you do my paperwork, you can dance in and out of the courts. La-di-di, you're, expatriated. What they don't tell you is a judge doesn't have to acknowledge that you're no longer an American national. He'll just put you in jail until you tap out and give them your money anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's an assembly, it's a completely different beast. This is the thing is when you have the Vatican working against you, it's a strong enemy to oppose. So you're not going to hear me send love too much to the Vatican. I love my Catholics that are, straight up Christians, but I don't love the people over them. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I understand that comment. And this is, okay, I hope and pray and wish you all luck that you actually can succeed, because if it goes Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, it's going to be chaos. But, like you say, if you try to mess with these people at their game of Dungeons and Dragons, they just put you in a pen and hold you there till they change the law, or you tap out, or 10 days before you release, you have a mysterious incident and you don't make it out of jail alive. Like, I'm just saying, there's nothing they won't do to win. Basically, like, I'm not trying to be negative here. I don't know.
Well, that's the problem we're facing right now is the conflict that you're expressing right now is the same conflict that we run into when we're trying to explain this to people. I mean, it's legit. It really is. I mean, this is the only way they will acquiesce. This is the only way that they will acknowledge. And this is the only way we can force them to acknowledge. Otherwise, they're just going to keep on writing their own laws and making us apply to them. So it's either their way or the real way. And real quick, I want to throw this up here from Anarchy. 38 states as a whole, every individual on board, or just the so-called leaders of those states? Well, like I said, there's rules to this. And the 38 states was not just, throwing, a dart on a dartboard to pick which one. It was done because that's the amount of states that gives us the majority. Would you like to add on to that, Sean?
Yes, I actually would. Thank you for highlighting that too, by the way, because I was going to address that. When you have the assembly is not just a leader. In fact, the way I explain it to people, there's no leaders in the assembly movement. There's just people who do one thing or another. They do it more, they do it better. I kind of have a gift for running my mouth, so I talk about it a lot. There's other people, they're more gifted with graphics, so they're making little flyers saying, hey, come to the phone call every night of the week on this night, this phone number, etc. And the thing you have to look at is, you guys have heard about this stuff in the conservative community before. The Nation States Project, that's where this all started with. The guy who was running it out of Pennsylvania, he went a little loopy, too bad for him. But Michigan carried on, and Michigan got their interim status situated. There's a group right out there right now, and I'm going to bring them up because they were brought to my attention recently, called Convention of States. Okay, Convention of States, you got some good ideas, except one, you're asking for donations, which means somebody somewhere is holding that money. But two, you're founded by a lawyer. So right there, it's just like, we got the bar at the top of the company. Interesting.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the Convention of States within the corporation?
That was my point. Mm-hmm. And that the bar lawyer should have been the dead giveaway. So it's just like, you don't have constitutional attorneys and constitutional lawyers, folks. That's a misnomer. So you got to vet who's doing what. Now, all these different groups out there, including the ones ran by the Vatican pawns, they are not publishing notifications. They're not issuing grievances. They're not doing anything. They're just saying they have the way to do it. Whereas the different assemblies that exist, especially in the case of Michigan and Alaska, have done the work, have published their notices, have issued their grievances, have issued their requisitions, and as recently as an episode of Hannity, you have Governor Dunleavy saying that, yes, the waterways of Alaska are going to return to the people. And that was a requisition from the Alaska General Assembly. They want their waterways back so they can fish. This is going to be like Brexit, where the English couldn't fish, but the Norsemen could come into their waters and fish. So that right there, just as an economic move, just the waterway issue alone, symbolically, it's telling the corporation, you're not going to have maritime rule here. But in practicality, people in Alaska, hey, guess what? They get to go back to fishing on their lakes and on their ponds and on their rivers, on their canals. And if you do the homework on how much water is accessible in Alaska because of the size of their coastline, you're going to be amazed. And something to keep in mind too, everyone talks about Texas being this big constitutional state. That's pretty awesome. And I don't know what the status on their assembly is at the moment. I know they got a few competing bodies, but I do know with Alaska and its situation being brought forward, that Alaska is the largest state in the union. And then California, with our work, we're the third largest state, and we are the most populous, if not the second most populous, give or take New York, who's neck and neck with us in terms of population. So when you have those big states saying to the country, not only are we conservative, but we are, issuing notice that we are displeased with this corporation, people are going to listen, whether it's by population size or just by the size of the land and thus the resources that are available. To further add to this, because our government is ran as a constitutional republic, we don't have to get every single person on board, but by forming assemblies at the county level and reaching out and putting not just bare minimums, but you're allowed to go above the bare minimum. I can try to recruit 13 people and a couple of alternates. Why am I going to do that? I'm going to recruit 20. I'm going to recruit 30. I'm going to recruit 40. You keep growing it. This way, you have more legitimacy to your claims when your body issues its petitions, its grievances, its notices. So if you're an introvert, it may not be the best, club for you to be in if you want to think of it as a club, which is a terrible analogy. Yeah,
please don't think of it as a club.
This is not a club. This is not us LARPing and playing Patriot games and polishing our brass. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with you. Yeah, sorry. You can have your brass, but you can only polish it for so long. The more you stay in your basement, the more the enemy is going to move and figure out your location. Doing nothing is a choice, just like doing something or doing something in opposition. Doing nothing is a choice as well. What you guys choose to do is up to you. If your choice is to do nothing, don't complain when you get no results. The people who do stuff, they do it because they take initiative, and we get it done proactively. Now, there's going to be people who are like, well, why don't I just go to the Second Amendment? As I said earlier, it's a biblical process. God will not smite Israel without telling them first, repent. And here's, he sends a prophet or he sends a plague or something as a warning. The Israelites get their chance to repent, and if they don't, then they get smited. And in the case of this, if this assembly movement fails, then we go hot. If we go hot, China and the assets that are here from the Middle East, and you guys worry about blue helmets that aren't very well taught. Blue helmets, you'll never see them. The assets are already here. Okay, the infrastructure's here. Confucius Institutes, Trump and Pompeo shut those down because they were breeding Chinese loyalists within our own country. That's what they caught. There's always what they don't catch. So they go hot. The United Nations is like, oh, civil war. We get peacekeeping authorization. We are under their version of martial law and not the Libre Code American version of martial law. For the life of me, for those of you who want to cite Nuremberg Code, please deep dive on Nuremberg Code. As I advised Vex last week, Nuremberg Code was never signed off on by the United States. There are different codes that are signed on regarding medical stuff, but most of them were so big pharma could continue to experiment on patients. So you can use Nuremberg Code to bluff people, but if they got half a mind to do the research, they'll call your bluff on it, folks. So do good research on that Nuremberg Code, because if you want to consent to that, you're consenting to the United Nations calling the shots. That's something to ponder right there. I yield.
Thank you, Sean. Real quick, I'd like to address this right here. Anarchy said, all governments for centuries only care about one thing: continuity of government. Oh, it will be used any means necessary to keep the continuity, and it doesn't give a shit about the individuals. Now, instead of using the word government or governments, put corporation, and you nailed it. Because corporations don't give a flying fuck about anything but money. And that's exactly what we're dealing with. This is a criminal cabal. However the hell you say that damn word, cabal.
Cabal. Cabal's the town where the cabal sold us out.
Okay, that's what fucked me up then. Okay. But, yeah, see, they will do what they can get away with, and they will explain away in an afterthought if they get uprisings with it. We've all witnessed it. I mean, we see it almost on a daily basis. They're always covering their ass trying to explain away every little thing that they said because they have to. It's all a lie, a big bluff. But yeah, in this, what you wrote, change the government to corporation, and you got it dead on. Same thing with any other corporation.
May I add on to that? In the
Please.
terms of the in the terms of that corporate governance, as it's often called, aka the New World Order. Again, when we get oversight, it doesn't mean that that we close up the shop or close up the store. It just means we tell them, okay, you don't run your business in a way that violates the rights of we the people. You know, you run it in a responsible way. So if it's toxic waste that's the problem, we revoke their ability to, you know, put toxic waste, say, into our water. We call that fluoride. If it's giving us poisonous food, we tell them, hey, no more GMO contracts from Monsanto. And then when that happens, the rest of the world's like, the Americans got their crap together. Let's copy it. Because that's been the one
Exactly.
thing. Everybody copies America, but when America goes sideways, guess what? The rest of the world starts going sideways.
And they usually go
where that last
faster.
report. Yes, they do. They have less continuity of government to be sure that they don't go sideways. So
Continuity of corporation.
hold on here. I know I probably missed it, but to make America great again is eliminate the Federal Reserve and the IRS. He is correct on that, but the catch is you can't eliminate the money before you eliminate the people who run the money policy, because they will just put us on a new fiat. So you're correct on that. But when you tell this banking corporation, hey, you know, so long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, goodbye, and over here you're like, all right, guys, we got all this gold. Let's make a gold standard. You see, problem solved, problem dealt with. But people want to jump all over the Federal Reserve issue before jumping over the assembly issue. They're putting the carrot behind the horse instead of in front of it.
Yeah, here's a good. Yeah, here's a good idea for the coming future. If you want to put yourself in a position of, you know, basically, I don't even know what right word to use on this, but regardless, if you want to do something good for the future, get a hold of physical assets like gold, silver, precious metals, things of that nature, and start a bank, a community bank. Actually, to be more exact, a county bank for the people of the county only. That's going to be the future of banking. None of this stuff that's going on right now will have anything to do with it. It will be all local, and you will have assets on hand for the people of that county. And maybe I didn't explain it right, but that's the gist of it. And real quick, common sense, common law. How many states does it take to make an amendment to the Constitution? Anybody got that one? Because I, off the top of my head, don't know.
If I'm not mistaken, you might be in the ballpark of saying 38. I could be completely off on that, but I have this funny hunch that I might be right.
Yeah, that's the only number I can come up with, just because that's what we're doing. 38 states, 75%. And what it takes to get your state, and damn, I'm just messing up my whole sentence. And for the state, you go to 31 people to serve notice for your state. Now, that is, 25 for the grand jury, 2 alternates, and 4 investigators. Correct?
Sounds about right, if the math's right.
All right.
Keep in mind, folks, just to reflect this, the country started out with 52 signers of the Declaration of Independence, 52 for 13 colonies. So in terms of numbers, it's not as impossible, especially now that there are millions of people in each state versus, you know, thousands. And in terms of sacrifice, 12 of the 52 lost their homes. They had their homes burnt down by the British or worse. Some were, of course, killed. Some were jailed. Some lost their spouses and siblings to the British by way of war or disease. So when you guys, talk about the different sacrifices you might have to make from a fear rationale, those fears have existed. The only difference is that now it's more state of the art. That instead of the British coming to burn down your house, they might burn down your checking account, and so you wind up in this. Either way, you wind up without a home. It's just the approach is different.
Like I
there's
said,
only certain.
It's like the Revolutionary War. What I was saying earlier, the Revolutionary War never stopped. They just came at us from a different angle. They've never been our ally, ever. Sorry,
Friends
go ahead.
close friends close, enemy closer philosophy. Remember, Machiavelli wrote The Prince long before the American colonies had a revolution. You don't think the nobles, especially in the papal states and throughout Europe, didn't read that? By the way, I've read The Prince. I highly recommend you guys read it in terms not of learning how to think evilly politically, but learning of it and how to build coalitions. A great point Machiavelli hits on, and no one pays attention, is that your family will be more loyal to you than mercenaries ever will. And yet people were shocked when Donald Trump put his family into positions of power. Well, of course, because they're not going to be mercenaries.
Same thing Kennedy did.
Yep. And that's what spooks the corporation, is when they realize there's people who essentially not only they have their own faction, but they're not going to be shakeable or bribable. They're going to stick to their guns.
Damn right. Now, Rebel Jack said, I was thinking 38, but may need to be like 45 for like 90%. Not sure. Could also need to be fully unanimous. So that was Rebel Jack's take on how many states does it take to make an amendment to the Constitution.
Well, the best process to follow would be the, I believe it was the 13th Amendment, where they created the income tax and all that. Now, that amendment was actually incorrectly ratified. And again, folks, you can go and do all the research. Red Beckman and his friends did all this. They proved that you're not supposed to be paying taxes. And the judges will say that is frivolous. We don't care. But if you actually research the, again, I believe it is the 13th Amendment, you will find out that several states missed the deadline to ratify. Other states did not have a proper quorum of their bodies to vote on it within the state. Some states never even brought it back to their states. They just voted without asking, again, what their state legislatures thought or their own citizens. Several other states voted, of course, in opposition of it. Several states said, hey, we want amendments to this amendment, and here are the corrections, and they never got any feedback on the corrections. Others had other different issues where they wanted to tack things on. So that whole amendment and the establishment of the IRS was a cluster, but Woodrow Wilson's buddy doing it, he pushed it through, and then you look into him and his connections, and you'll find them on Wikipedia, because the radical left are proud to admit their sins. That's one thing. Wikipedia is terrible for patriot research, but when you want to catch leftists, how awful they are, look at their profiles of their own people, and they'll admit their stuff because they're proud of it. That's how perverse they are. They take pride in effing over the country. And you will find that the people involved in the 13th Amendment were quite the calling them characters would be an insult to people in movies and cartoons, but these folks were pretty bad. And for a moment, there's people who say that Woodrow Wilson regretted what he did with the IRS and the income tax. Nah, he's a better educated than that. If you think he regretted it, he's just giving lip service to the media so he could play both sides. That guy knew full well what he was doing, especially with all the stuff that was going into it. So the process of the ratification, you can look at that, and that was before Hawaii and Alaska were added in. So all those two states did was add, 2 more potential votes and the extra votes in the House of Representatives. So I'm going to yield on that. It's about 11 o'clock, guys. I've been up all day doing stuff regarding getting our word out, trying to get copies of USA Today and stuff like that. And I might be on later, but my phone's like burning hot to the touch. So I need to let this battery at least cool down and at least let it do a reboot without the battery pack overheating it.
Well, that's all right. We've gone about, just over 3 hours. So that might be a good point to go ahead and bring this to a close. I mean, we've put out a lot of good information here. Hopefully, a whole bunch of people will see this and start looking deeper into their, immediate areas, and well, basically come to the National Assembly and join up with us, and let's get this stuff taken care of. And
Definitely.
yeah,
I'm not gonna put any stakes on anything like it's Vegas, what have you. But I'll be honest, guys. For those of us who know about where all the Patriots are too, Arizona is beginning to look really, really good. And we got someone in the chats and the comments here from Arizona. She's your go-to. I would recommend reaching out to her. She'll get you guys plugged in if you're from Arizona or if you know Patriots that are out that way. Washington was on our national call last Thursday night, and they're looking to grow. I mean, Washington, what? Seattle, what? Florida is getting ready to ping on. There are so many. I look at it almost like it's a video game or like playing Risk. Like, how many of these 38 states can we get? And how fast can we get them? Because I do have that kind of competitive mindset, and I don't look at it like, okay, if a state is vacant, that it has no patriots. And why? Because Mike Lindell got a representative from every state to his symposium. All 50 states sent representation by day 3 to the cyber symposium. So if Mike Lindell can get 50 people together to attend and to watch and to learn about how those voting machines were messed up for that corporate vote, then let's apply that to us. We should be able to get 50 states together. At least the one person who went to visit Lindell, you should be able to get them, right? So there's a lot of positivity if you know to ignore the mainstream news and look at your wins and take your wins when they come. Last week, I was having Vex talk about his win. I was putting him up to it because I wanted people to understand, yes, the courts are beatable. Vex can be the first to tell you. But at this point, now it's kind of, fading in the background. We got new developments, new things, and there will be other situations where we have wins. Will the news play that for you? No. The machine feeds off your fear. They feed off your doubts. They're only going to play your doubts. You want to know where the wins are, go to the Patriot type media that's out there, because we're going to cover the wins, and then go to the national-assembly.net website where we apply the wins, where we apply the knowledge, and where we apply moving forward versus staying in place, wondering what tragedy is going to befall us next. Because there's going to be tragedies regardless, folks. The attitude you have in moving forward, paraphrase Winston Churchill, success is moving forward from one failure to the next without lack of enthusiasm. I yield.
Thank you, Sean. Pseudo, you got some closing remarks? Maybe another question? You're on mute, by the way, if you didn't know. No, maybe he stepped away for a second there. Well, one of the things, like I said earlier, I've seen 2 scenarios overall come into fruition. It just goes into the pattern. And one is we go hot and we basically let the world just devolve into chaos, because that's really, really what they want. Or we can do this by the letter, precisely, and justly, and lawfully, and take it all out at the same time. So, I mean, this is what we were already supposed to be doing. I'm not a magician. I don't have magical powers. So, I mean, none of us have I'm fucking up on my words again. Basically,
May
I? Please save me.
If you had magical powers to make everyone do this, we wouldn't have free will. The contest of liberty is about free will. Do you choose freedom and liberty, or do you choose to stay stuck where you're at and not get anything done? By the way, Latin Patriot, hi, I see you in the chats there. We might have a summary of it. It's called When the Episode is Wrapped. Vex will probably post it to YouTube, and it'll be available for your download at your leisure. I yield.
Thank you very much, Sean. Basically, yeah, it's we've already been over this a number of times, but it can't be stated enough. We need you. I mean, if you want peace, to live in peace, to grow your family and watch them have families, this is the way to do it. And we need your help to do it. Plain and simple. We need you to get in there and learn what we should already know. This should be common sense, common law. Huh. Thanks, Hayden, for that name. But yes, it should.
I see what you did there.
But it should be common sense, everyday thought. We should not be going through this at all. And we all know we don't like what's going on right now, do we? We all have individual grievances. Let's bring them to bear and blast these motherfuckers out of their chairs. Metaphorically speaking, of course.
I kind of look at it a little bit differently. We're not going to blast them out of the chairs. We're going to tie them in their chairs. Now, where those chairs wind up, it's just speculation. Wink, wink. Especially if they're plugged into so many kilohertz or kilowatts. But that's the key component right there. Is that they created a system, and what they didn't realize is their system screws them over too. And if they so as much disobey their system, the rest of their own people in their system will come at them because it's their only insurance, wink, wink, of that they can, be in business, is that they honor their word. Their word is their bond. And yes, Latin Patriots, correct on that observation. It looks, as we're getting ready to wrap here, Vex, it looks like we got a bunch of people coming into the chat. 1.2 gigawatts. Yes, that's quite a reference there.
1.21 gigawatts.
What the hell is a gigawatt?
It's a lot of power. And,
yes, it is.
And each one of us, as we the people, have ample amounts of power to get this done. But hey, drill sergeant. Wait, I'm having trouble with the spelling of it. Sorry.
Drill Sergeant 666. Oh no.
Oh goody.
It must be Army.
All right. Military guys, stand down.
Yeah. Don't worry. As long as he stepped on the gold footprints and upholds the oath to the Constitution, then he's going to like what we're doing. And if he ain't upholding his oath to the Constitution, then shame on him, for he is in dishonor. And you know what happens to those who have dishonor. So I'll leave it at that.
Well, Drill, at least you took the time to actually hit a button. Thanks. I appreciate it. And all you got to do to get me to shut up is click that X up there at the corner of your screen. Then you can fly and be free. Or fly straight into your chains. Yeah, your choice. But on that note, I'm going to go ahead and put this to a close. And I want to thank you guys for coming up here and hanging out with me. Yeah, I really do appreciate it. Common Sense Common Law. Sean, thank you. Pseudoscientist, thank you so much. All you guys in chat, even Drill, thank you. Thank you for showing up. I appreciate that. And yeah, brains and trains. Thank you. But on that note, I yield. And I'll tell you all good night and sweet dreams.